Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen is trying to hook OP for child support when the baby might not even be his. Am I the jerk for telling my ex-girlfriend I won't help her until we do a DNA test? I, 25 male, need some advice. My ex-girlfriend, Emma, who's 23, and I were together for 2 years. We broke up 4 months ago because we wanted different things. The breakup was friendly and we said that we'd stay friends. 2 weeks ago, Emma called me out of the blue, very upset. She told me she's pregnant and that the baby is mine. She wants us to get back together and raise the baby as a family. I was really surprised because we haven't been together or hooked up since we broke up. She said the timing lines up perfectly. I asked her how far along she is, and she said 3 months, which matches when we broke up. But we always used precautions, so I found it hard to believe. I told her I'd be there for the baby if it's mine, but I needed a DNA test to make sure. I didn't want to end up in a situation that's not true. Emma got really mad, saying I should trust her and that I'm being insensitive. She cried and said I don't love her or our baby. She said she couldn't believe that I'd doubt her like this. I tried to explain that that's not true. It's not about trust, but about being sure of something that will change my life. I said I'd support her emotionally, but wouldn't commit to anything financially or get back together until we had a test done. She hung up on me, and now she's telling our friends and her family that I'm refusing to help her. I'm getting messages from people saying I'm abandoning her and the baby. Some friends understand my side, but others think I'm being too harsh and paranoid. Am I the jerk for wanting a DNA test done before committing to anything? Not the jerk. This is a standard request if your ex comes to you months after breaking up telling you they're pregnant. She can get as offended as she wants to. You're not in a relationship. Trust isn't relevant. If she wants to start another relationship with you, it needs to start from the beginning. Friends get different trust standards than longtime couples do. The fact that she's pushing back so hard and spreading lies is rather telling. It could still be yours, but I wouldn't bet my finances on it. If she wants you to support the kid, she can prove it's yours. As an aside, getting together for the kid after you already know you aren't compatible is monumentally stupid. Even if it is your kid, you'd be better off co-parenting separately. You broke up for a reason. If this kid is yours, you don't have to get back together. You can still be a present father without being in a relationship. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for refusing to fire my nanny and telling my husband I would rather divorce him than fire her? My husband, John, who's 40, and I, 26 female, have been together for 5 years, married for 3, and we have 3 kids who are 3 months, 2, and 4. We met when I was still in college working part-time as a nanny for his friend's family. We crossed paths a few times at my nanny family's functions, and my nanny family gave him my number and encouraged me to go out with him. Initially, I only did because I didn't want to offend them, but we ended up really hitting it off. I accidentally got pregnant with my oldest about a year into seeing him. 3 kinds of birth control and still got pregnant. What are the chances? At first, I was devastated because I was just about to graduate and had already been offered an amazing internship in my field. The internship would require me to move across the country, and so I was already planning to leave my current job and break up with John so I could pursue my dream job. So my initial plan was to not go through with the pregnancy. However, long story short, I ended up staying with John and having my oldest, but under the agreement that I would start working ASAP and John would pay for childcare so I didn't have to be a stay-at-home mom and permanently walk away from career goals that I had worked very hard towards for basically my whole life. As soon as my son was born, I fell instantly in love, and the few resentments I had about the way things turned out completely disappeared. While I did stay home with him for the first year because I couldn't stand to leave him for more than a few hours, I was open with John about my plans to find a job in my field as soon as I could, and he was always on board and never expressed any issue with it. John and I got married when my oldest was 1, and John started pushing me to have more kids, but I refused because I felt ready to start working. I ended up getting a really great job offer at the company I'm still with today. I started looking for nannies and was put in contact with our current nanny, Sarah, who's 21. She has honestly been a godsend. She's the sole reason I made it through being apart from my baby, and she does such an amazing job. I honestly can't imagine my life without her. Shortly after I started my job, I accidentally got pregnant again, another birth control baby, and my husband tried to talk me into staying home with the kids again after my second was born, but I was too happy with my job. They offered to let me work from home part-time, which worked out perfectly. My husband wanted to cut back Sarah's hours as I would be home a lot more, but I refused because while I'd be able to feed and help take care of my newborn, I still wanted to be there to help with our rambunctious toddler while I was working. Our arrangement worked out really well, and I recently did the same with our third baby, while Sarah watches the older two during the days when I'm working. Sarah and I get along great. We have a lot in common, and I see her as a friend as much as an employee. My kids love her very much and ask about her whenever she isn't there. Since I was also a nanny, I'm able to work with her effectively, and I have so much respect and admiration for the job she does with my kids, and she's even more patient and hands-on than I ever was with my nanny family's kids. Even though we pay her a lot, I honestly think she's worth even more than that, and I tip her as much as I can. For some reason, my husband does not feel the same way. He's very critical of her. Not to her face, he has very little interaction with her as most days she leaves before he gets home. To me, he's always nitpicking how she does things, like if a few toys get left out in the playroom, if she used too much gas in the car, if she got fast food for the kids instead of cooking them a meal, etc. He tells me she's not worth what we're paying her and that she's doing an easy job that I was fine doing for free. This irritates me like nothing else. Because while yes, I don't find looking after my kids particularly difficult, I wouldn't call it remotely easy, and it's much different when it comes to dedicating most of your free time to looking after someone else's kids. And Sarah goes above and beyond to make sure my kids are safe, happy, and entertained every day, and even does some preschooling with them. Last week, my husband confronted me with some of the footage from our security cameras of Sarah ignoring the kids. The whole thing was completely ridiculous. There was one video where she left my 2-year-old in her high chair crying for 5 minutes while taking my 4-year-old to the bathroom 3 feet away. There was one where she let them stay up past bedtime to finish a movie while she worked on schoolwork. All relatively innocuous things like that I couldn't care less about. The worst of it was a video of her texting on her phone for like 30 minutes while my kids were playing, which we have asked her to not be on the phone while playing with the kids. But even though she technically did something wrong, she's a human being. She's not going to be perfect 100% of the time. Once he was done showing me, he then accused me of not caring about our kids' well-being, because if I did, I would agree with him that we need to fire her. I told him there's no way that we're going to fire her, and if it wasn't for her, our kids would actually be ignored because we both work full-time. He told me that Sarah was trying to take over my role as a mother in my kids' eyes, and she was coming between me and our family, and if I cared about our family, I would want to fire her too. I laughed in his face and told him I'd rather divorce him and pay for her myself than fire her and quit my job. He stormed out and hasn't spoken to me since. Am I the jerk? Edit. I thought this was just an annoying ongoing argument between my husband and myself about our nanny, but you all have opened my eyes to a much deeper issue. And I want to say that I'm a bit worried it came across like I resent getting pregnant or having kids, but I don't. I love my kids more than anything, and I would not trade them for the life I wanted before or choose my job over them if it ultimately came to that. I do stress about the accidental pregnancies a lot because it makes me feel out of control of my own life and body, but I hope that doesn't come across as me having regrets over them. The last thing I want is for people to think my kids are a burden who have ruined my life, because they're a gift and have brought more love to my life than I knew I was capable of. I really don't feel trapped by them or anything like that. Not really sure where to go from here or how to investigate this further. Many of you were concerned about me not having an emergency fund or a safety plan, and I do keep my finances separate from his, and luckily I make good enough money that I could leave if I really needed to. Not the jerk. Your husband says Sarah is doing an easy job that you were fine doing for free. This shows he puts no value on your career or happiness outside of the roles of wife and mother. Since you make enough money to cover her wages, it's not about the money. He wanted you to be a stay-at-home mom and you wouldn't have brought in any income. Sounds like he wanted a traditional wife, and he probably thought with each baby, now you'll be a stay-at-home wife. I can't see this going anywhere good. I don't know what his problem is unless he thinks you and Sarah are having an affair. Start pestering him about quitting his job to be a stay-at-home dad. You're the jerk for 2 reasons. 1, you start off by saying, for some reason, your husband is not a fan of Sarah. Then you later mention that your husband caught her texting for 30 minutes instead of watching your toddlers. Sounds like your husband is justifiably concerned father. Moreover, if you can see that Sarah texts on her phone instead of supervising your kids like she's supposed to, it doesn't make sense for you to be so stubbornly loyal to Sarah. You come off as incredibly cavalier about a nanny ignoring your kids for 30 minutes in order to text people. Would you also be okay with your husband taking a 30-minute nap while no one else is home and the kids are running around the house? I doubt that. Hard to believe you're unwilling to at least talk to Sarah about job expectations. 2. Your style of defending Sarah is creating a false binary by implying that firing Sarah is equivalent to not having a nanny at all, as if it's out of the question for you to suggest hiring a different nanny. You're the jerk. You'll have to fire her in a divorce anyway. You won't be able to afford her. You'll get child support, but that won't cover the nanny. His assets acquired prior to marriage are protected, and you can't touch them with a marriage as short as yours. I'm a single parent with a high-paying job, so I know the costs involved. I don't think you thought your threat out to completion. You should also do some soul-searching. If the nanny is more important than your husband, you should probably divorce for everyone's future happiness. Am I the jerk for breaking my vegan diet? My, 15 male, entire family are vegans. My dad especially is a very vocal vegan. He goes to protests, he was in vegan groups in our old city. He's a vegan activist, which I love. I'm not trying to paint those things as bad. I really respect him for his thoughts. My brother and I have both been raised vegan our entire lives. At school, it's always made me feel othered, is the best way I can explain it. Never able to eat anything sold in the school canteen. At friends' birthdays, we're never able to eat a piece of cake with my friends or have to be the one who says, we can't go to that restaurant if they don't serve any vegan food. Always having to explain why I'm not allowed to try a bite of their sandwich. They aren't huge things, but they are things that make me stick out. Since I'm an awkward guy anyway, it just doesn't help me socially. So when we moved cities and I joined a new school last Monday, I decided that I'm not going to follow the vegan diet while I'm at school. I kept this to myself because I know my parents wouldn't support it and they'd be angry. When at home or with my parents, I will follow the vegan diet. But if I'm out with my friends or at school, then I don't. In my mind, this was respectful of my parents' wishes. No meat in the house or around them, but myself was different. My brother and I both go to this new school. I didn't tell my brother that I wasn't going to follow the vegan diet. I didn't think he would support it, and I thought he would tell my dad. Things have been going all right, but I didn't know that on Fridays, my brother's lunchtime would be the same as mine. I was sitting with some new friends, and I was eating a cheese pizza. This is the only non-vegan food I've eaten so far. I want to try pepperoni, but still feel a little scared. And my brother caught me and asked what I was doing eating pizza. I tried to play it off, but I knew I was done for. My brother told my parents, and now everyone is really upset at me. I've been grounded, and my dad said he's going to call my new school and tell them that if they sell me non-vegan food, he will put in a discrimination complaint, which is just going to make me seem like a weirdo now. I tried to explain to him that I was trying to be respectful by not doing it here, but my parents just gave me a huge lecture how I'm so selfish for breaking the diet. He said he can't trust me anymore, and now I feel guilty in one half of my brain, and in another, I'm telling myself that it's not a big deal and they're overreacting. But I don't know if I'm just being blind. Please, no debates about the ethics of the vegan diet. I don't care to debate it with anyone. I'm sure there are subreddits where people will be happy to. Please focus on my situation when giving your verdict. Not the jerk. It's really unfortunate your brother ratted you out. On the plus side, it means OP has a valid explanation next time someone asks if he wants to try something. Sorry, I can't. My brother's a snitch. Yeah, he snitched on me for eating pizza. He's a weirdo, right? At least that's what I would like to pretend I would do in this situation. OP. My brother's only 11. While I'm mad at him, I don't want to make his school life hard. I'll probably just keep it to myself, and I'll remember we have the same lunchtime on Fridays, if I'm even brave enough to eat non-vegan again. Not the jerk, but you're not in a great position to rebel against your family's choices. The emphasis on a vegan lifestyle is similar to a religious lifestyle, and it seems that your father views it that way if he's ranting about discrimination cases. Not the jerk. Not sure how old you are, but you should not at all feel guilty about how strictly you even follow a vegan diet. I bet your dad ate pepperoni pizza before he became a vegan. OP. I'm 15, and honestly, I doubt it. My parents raised my dad vegetarian before they became vegan, and he's super serious about it. I can't imagine he's ever eaten meat. My mom probably has. She turned vegan when she met my dad. The part about your dad making a discrimination complaint to the school if they sell you animal products is hilarious to me. Since he's in activist circles, I'd think that he would know that's not discrimination. You're not the jerk. OP. I don't know. I think what he's truly saying is he will embarrass me in front of everyone. He's made big fusses about me being vegan before at school, and he knows I don't like when he does that. He probably thinks that I'll just agree so he doesn't come in and do his whole act to embarrass me. How do I make my wife tell me who's sending her food to her workplace on a daily basis? This is a first. Since the 10 years that we've been together, there hasn't been a single jealousy-induced fight since neither of us are the jealous type. I was cheated pretty bad by another person. She knows this and knows I'm insecure about it, so we both are pretty open about our friends and families to avoid misunderstandings between us, until she started getting all secretive with this specific matter. She stopped eating the food I cook for her because someone pays for her food now. The catch? There aren't any coworkers in her office. She does consultation at her own little one-person place, and everything else is managed off-site by the company she's working for. Now, why I'm making a big deal out of this? It was not a big deal until it was. I was super happy for her because maybe some client was so satisfied with her service that they sent her food in gratitude. It was a bi-monthly occurrence at best, and she used to tell me, "Hey, this client sent me some Starbucks. Nice." Or, "Wow, other client's mother made me a sandwich and some Jell-O." But then it became bi-weekly, and then she stopped knowing who sent her the expensive food. Nowadays, it's daily. She always returns my food to me when she gets home, gone all bad because she didn't eat it. I don't make a big deal, but I stop making jokes about it like, "Hey, tell them to send some for me too," or things like that because it started to annoy me that she doesn't eat my food and lets it go bad. I'm a pretty good cook and I hate wasting food. And it got weird when she started to show off that the food someone sent to her is better, costly and restaurant made. It started as an annoyance about wasting food, but what triggered my insecurity about this is that one day, after she sent me the usual picture, I told her, "Surprise! I went ahead and sent you that myself." And she replied, all annoyed, "Ha ha, funny. I know it wasn't you." So I told her, "Who was it then?" Her answer, I don't know." So she doesn't believe that it was me, but doesn't know who it was. The second catch, they always send her things pretty specific to her likings. I may be paranoid, but most items she gets are things that she has to tell someone she likes, since it's not generic expensive food, but menu items catered to her palate or drinks prepared exactly how she likes them. She could be ordering herself, but she denies it. She knows I don't mind, I just don't want her wasting food. If she's ordering food for herself, why doesn't she tell me? I told her it wouldn't be a problem since that way I can save food at home and won't wake up as early, but she still denies and still doesn't know who it is. It's the first time I get this type of treatment from her. Why be so secretive about food? She knows it'll only get worse if you hide this type of thing. Why is she being so mysterious and mischievous about it? This is weird. She's playing some kind of mind game with you. If she didn't want to tell you who was sending it, then why would she tell you about it at all? It's so childish. Like literally something we would do in high school. "Hey, I got flowers today." From who? I don't know. It's always to provoke jealousy. Am I the jerk for telling my friend we are tourists and we shouldn't act like we're not? I'm 21, female. As a post-graduation trip, me and my friends are going on a trip to France next summer. This is my first time going to Europe, so I'm really excited, and we're currently in the planning stage. The issue concerns one of my friends, Katie, who's also 21, female. Katie has never been out of the country, and somehow she's got it in her head that the worst thing someone can be in another country is a tourist. I think she's read too many articles and watched too many TikToks about how Europeans can't stand American tourists. Anyways, she's now trying to change our trip to be as untouristy as possible. For example, she sent the rest of the group pictures of French street fashion and is insisting that we can only pack outfits that look like that. When one person said she didn't have clothes that look like that, Katie just said, "Guess you'll need to go shopping." She also says that Europeans do not wear sneakers and will immediately label us as tourists if we're seen wearing them, so we can't bring them, even though we'll be walking a lot. Additionally, when I tried to suggest places for us to visit, Katie immediately shot them down and said that those are too touristy, and we would try and find other places to go to. When I asked her what kind of places, she pulled up some French residential neighborhoods and local shops and said we would be better off spending our time there since it's more authentic. To be clear, she's not concerned about avoiding pickpockets since we've already purchased pickpocket-proof pouches. It's just about looking like tourists. In my view, there's nothing wrong with being a tourist and doing touristy things as long as we're respectful of the locals and French culture. Besides, if I'm only getting a limited time in France, I don't want to be spending it all just walking around random people's houses and looking at them like they're zoo animals. I told this to Katie, and she got upset and said I was the reason why Europeans can't stand tourists. I told her that we are tourists. Why try to hide it? I'm pretty sure French people would be more annoyed if we tried to act like we were locals instead of just being respectful visitors. Katie got even more upset and said that if I want to be disrespectful of their culture, then I can go to France on my own. She then left our planning session. The rest of our group is kind of split on the issue. Most of them agree with me and think it's a waste of time to walk around residential neighborhoods instead of the sightseeing, but they're also very afraid of being perceived as annoying Americans. So I'd like to get some more perspectives on if I'm the jerk here. I've traveled a lot. People in other countries love tourists. They just can't stand you if you're arrogant. It does sound like Katie is that sort of arrogant American that people from other countries will not appreciate. Tourist attractions have the infrastructure to support tourism. Choosing not to go there and instead go to areas that may not have that support isn't somehow going to make you all beloved to the French locals. By all means, visit some of the beaten path destinations. Find a local guide and enjoy the path less chosen. But don't miss out on other cultural locations simply because you don't want to be a tourist. Just be polite and culturally sensitive. Leavey me alone, lady. I don't work here. The cast. We've got me, avid Pokemon enthusiast. We've got the store employee, and we've got Team Rocket Karen, the entitled parent, and Snuggles, the Eevee plushie. The story. So I, 33 male, am a huge lover of Pokemon, had just gotten paid, and decided I wanted to buy myself a Valentine's gift. I went to my local chain video game store, let's call it Video Game Go, because they have all kinds of collectibles. Having been there several times, I had seen a 24-inch Eevee plushie that I really liked. Perfect. Eevee is one of my favorite Pokemon, and this particular plushie could also be used for cosplay. Having grabbed my plushie and paid for it, and the bag that would give me a $5 discount on any collectibles that would fit inside it, I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. Now, as it is rather cold here in Texas, I was bundled up in several layers, including rather warm, comfy sweatpants, a rather large ski jacket, a stocking hat, scarf, and had my backpack on, with Snuggles the Eevee and her exclusive Corgi-eating noodles collectible bag. The employees of this particular video game chain store generally wear jeans, a t-shirt with the store logo or something similar, and a lanyard with a badge showing their name and the company logo on it. So there is no way I could possibly be confused as an employee. Enter Team Rocket Karen. Cue Team Rocket encounter music. Team Rocket Karen wants to battle. Snuggles the Eevee, I choose you. Karen, she had the typical Karen haircut and a look that screamed, "Where's your manager?" Excuse me, do you guys have… Enter game title here. Team Rocket Karen used confusion. It's super effective. Me. What? Team Rocket Karen used clap. Do you have… Enter video game title here. God, some people are so slow. Me. Snuggles the Eevee is confused. It hurt itself in confusion. What? Karen uses snap attack. Karen snapping her fingers. I want… Enter video game title here. I'm going to buy it for my son. Me. Snuggles the Eevee is still confused. I don't know. Maybe. Snuggles the Eevee used Shadow Ball. It hurt itself in confusion. It's at this point I was starting to realize this lady thinks I'm an employee. How her tiny Team Rocket brain made that connection is a mystery to me. I clearly don't look like an employee. Karen used roar. How do you not know? Are you stupid? Me. Snuggles the Eevee is no longer confused. Whoa, lady. There's no need for that language. This is a family store. Besides, I don't work here. I just came to get this plushie. Snuggles the Eevee used charm. It's not very effective. Karen. Don't lie to me. Of course you work here. You shouldn't be shopping when you're working. She used confusion. Me. What? Snuggles the Eevee is confused. I'm now starting to get mad. I just wanted to browse the store. Lady, what about me makes you think I work here? I look like a bum. Why don't you go over to the counter and ask the actual employee for your game? Leave me alone. At this point, employee, who has heard the whole exchange, finally finished up whatever he was doing and can finally react. He comes over. Employee, what's going on here? Karen opened her mouth to start yelling at poor employee. I've worked retail for most of my life and have dealt with Karens and entitled people a lot. I wasn't going to let her spew her BS. Me, this jerk assumed I work here. When I try to tell her that I don't, she lost her crap. Karen, that's a lie. This bum just came over and pretended to work here. He stole my stuffed animal. I demand you throw him out and call the cops. Employee and I stared at her in disbelief. Did she seriously try that crap? Employee, ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You were clearly harassing this customer. I heard everything that was said. Also, I literally just sold this plushie to him. He even has the receipt for it in his hand. Now please leave before I call the police. Karen is faltering now. But leave now, lady. Employee used hyperbeam. It's super effective. Karen has fainted. Karen, while storming out of the store, see if I ever shop here again. And you can be sure I'll call corporate about the customer service in this place. Employee and I looked at each other and burst out laughing at the absurdity of the whole situation. Employee, sorry about that, dude. Is there something in the store I can offer as compensation? Me, nah, dude, we're good. I have a new story for Reddit now. Employee laughed, hooked me up with some store credit, and promised to look up the story and upvote it. I took my Eevee plushie and headed out to get something to eat, still trying to wrap my head around the stupidity of some people. Speaking of Pokemon, who's your favorite Pokemon? Please leave a comment letting us know. Mewtwo for the win. Entitled parents think I'm not normal because I'm not what they expected, and so they hate me. I, 26 female, come from an average South Asian family. Being born a female means you're either married with kids or still living with your parents at this age. I'm the latter. My parents have been told by my extended family that they're the best parents in the world because my extended family as adults are jerks, basically. So my parents really take it to heart and are convinced that they are indeed the best parents in the world. I agree that they had gone through a rough time raising us. We're a group of 5, 3 girls and 2 boys, so it couldn't have been easy. And we're all nice kids as well. But they're very concerned that we're not doing the conventional, stereotypical South Asian kids thing like everyone else, so they believe they're still perfect. It's only that we're not normal. I'm the main target because I have my own life. I've never had a romantic relationship because I like being alone better. I didn't become a doctor like they wanted me to. I follow international relations and gender studies instead. Instead of kids, I have cats, whom I love like one would love their kids. Instead of getting a husband, I'm career-focused and pursuing education. And worst of all, when they try to control and subjugate me, I fight back. When they compare me to others, I compare them with the parents of the person/people they're comparing me to. I earn my own money and spend it on things I love, mostly my cats. I am a writer and I am a reader and I am a fighter. For them, all of this is just not normal. There's something wrong with me because I don't fit into the mold that they created, and me not fitting in would essentially take their best parents title away. But my father doesn't speak to his kids like they're humans. I pointed out that I didn't like the way he speaks to me, so he said I was disrespectful. My mother likes to imagine I don't exist and pretends not to hear me. She has sharp ears to catch if it's something about them, but if I'm talking about a concern, she pretends not to hear me. But still, they believe they are the best parents in the world and that there's something inherently wrong with all of their kids. Edit. Wow, I wrote this out of sadness and frustration yesterday night, and I woke up to see it as blown up. Thank you everyone for your kind words, but I think there's a few things to clarify. Sorry that I didn't mention clearly. 1. I do not have a degree in gender studies. I have a degree in social statistics, which can get me a job anywhere else but here. I work as a math teacher. I'm interested in gender studies, but I went to a public university thanks to free education we have here, and I was selected for social statistics, and my university didn't let me study anything else. Selecting your majors isn't simple here, especially if college is free. Also, for free higher education, you need to pass your GCSEs with good results, and I only did enough to get me into the social statistics degree. 2. In my country, moving out really isn't simple. This might sound strange for people like you, but here, most people own their houses. They buy lands and build their own, so usually it happens when people get married. They live with their husband's family for a while, build their own house. There are no affordable one-person houses, and shared houses are either extremely expensive, they're made for the foreign market, as in foreigners who live here, or people who earn a lot of money. But my salary is average, but enough to sustain myself and other means. 3. Someone told me that I don't contribute to my family. I take care of my younger siblings. Until 2 or 3 months ago, I used to spend on them, then my laptop broke, so I informed my parents that I had to save money for the laptop and cut down on the share I spent for my siblings. I bought a laptop recently, They're also very expensive here, so now I will be able to spend for them again. I love my younger siblings, especially the youngest. She's only 14, but she's amazingly talented. I helped my parents in raising her. Taking her to school and checking up on her education and all. I also used to be my parents' personal counselor sort of thing. When they think you're academically gifted, they take your advice on everything. So I listen to their problems and all, help them when they want to make decisions on my siblings' education and all. 4. I think there's this misunderstanding that my parents and I hate each other. I actually love them a lot, and I totally understand where they are coming from. My dad had a rough time growing up, so did my mom, so they probably want us to have the best. They grew up in a society where being successful as a doctor or engineer or becoming a teacher and getting married and having kids is the normal, and they see lots of kids doing that. Initially, I want to stay with my parents the whole time because they really need me to stay grounded. Despite them thinking that I'm not normal, they're tired and getting older, so I told them I will stay and take care of them and the youngest until she's old enough. Rather than getting angry, perhaps them seeing that I'm not doing the normal things makes them sad, I think. I feel bad for rebellion sometimes, but I did everything that they wanted, got into a public university, got a good job. I want to live my own life. 5. I want to study gender studies for my postgraduates, but it's not offered here in my country at any university for some reason. So I do international relations for my postgraduates and learn gender studies in my own time. The reason is that I see a lot of GBV in my country, and all the things that I faced as a woman in the university as well as everything that I and my sister had to go through as well. I think I want to make a difference for other women, and I know I started late, but I'm trying my best. 6. I write fiction. I started at age 7, and for that I'm thankful for my parents, but their outlook changed on it because I don't write in my own language. I write in English, so they think it's not worth reading and all, but I have a bunch of people who like my stuff, including myself, so I'm pretty happy with it. 7. I have 7 cats. They're all rescues. My parents used to support me with them all the time, but when they get sick or when one of them passes, I fall into depression, and they kind of hate it when that happens because they think I wouldn't be like that for them if they get sick. I try not to panic when they do, and I try to do what's necessary. I really hope my parents understand that I love them and my cats differently. Besides, we have good Medicare here if they get sick, but not a single vet surgeon that I can trust. Reach class on time, but you hate the smell? I'll make you regret it. This happened years ago, 2006 to 2009 era. So I went to school with separate sections for boys and girls, but we weren't secluded completely, and some elective classes were mixed. So there was this Karen teacher who really disliked boys. She always called us dirty and loud and yucky and would hit us and pinch us if one of us dared to talk back to her. We had her class mixed with girls, and they all would laugh at us boys for getting the drill and getting humiliated in front of them. The teacher actually enjoyed this, and she would purposefully find excuses to have us shamed for minor issues, like asking your friend for a pen while the girls yapped away and chatted with the teacher. She could not bear to hear us say a word. We were never given any opportunity to speak or answer questions, and she made sure the most difficult passages were given to read to this one boy with speaking difficulty. You get the idea. Basically, a jerk person. All of this behavior really upset me and made my blood boil with anger, but I never got any punishment because it was a language class, and I had always been the top of the class. Even her own daughter, who was with us in the same class, couldn't get past me. One year, we happened to have her class right after PE. Now, we didn't have any rules as to what was to be done in PE class, but we did get laps and push-ups after, which we were off to play cricket for the next 2 whole hours. The playground was a bit of a distance from the classroom, and it was shared by the high school and our middle school. It took about 3 minutes to reach her class from the playground. She hated that we were sweaty and reeked of body odor first day we came to class after we got our PE. She immediately went to the supervisor to have our schedule changed, where she got turned down. But she wasn't going to give up. I could see the hatred in her eyes burning brighter with every stinky breath she took in our class. Next, she implemented a rule saying that no one was allowed to be late more than 1 minute after the start, or they would be marked absent and have their marks cut. Fair enough, I thought. I talked to the teacher who had his period before our PE class, and he was willing to let us go early in exchange for working on a project for his class. I told the boys about my plan. We went to the ground half an hour early, played like heck as usual, got all sweaty, and then poured water all over ourselves to cool us off and rushed off to her class and were right on time, all soaking wet with soggy, disgusting, putrid training shoes, standing in a line in front of the classroom that only she had the keys to. We even took off our socks and kept them in our pockets just to make it smell extra bad. This was literal torture for her, as she had the full blast of the smell because it was a teeny tiny classroom and the boys were made to sit in the front, as a rule for mixed gender classes. We made the excuse that we couldn't dry off because she marked us absent since we had to be at our lockers and the playground was not nearby and all of our lockers were out of the way. We kept at this for a full 6 weeks after, which she gave up and exchanged classes with a male teacher. We never gave him much trouble. He allowed us the keys and we were crisp and cool sitting in front of the AC ready for the class. Best revenge I ever had. Edit. It was 7th grade and it was an Indian-owned school with kids from all over the world and Middle East. Am I the jerk for refusing to both cook and clean to cater to my husband's dietary needs? I, 34 female, and my husband, Paul, 35 male, have been married for a little over 2 years. We have no kids. Now, I know this is not how it is in every home, and I say do whatever floats your household boat. But here, if one cooks dinner, the other cleans. Turns out, Paul is not a gleeful cook and would rather clean, so almost all of the cooking falls on me, with the occasional takeout. And then lockdown. Paul works out of the home as an essential worker. I work from home. When it was September to October-ish, Paul comes to me and says he wants to eat healthier. Great, I love the man. I'd prefer he'd not have a heart attack. But Paul, my lovely Paul, of course had to take it to the 1003rd degree. He's trying all sorts of fad diets, and I mean all sorts. I've done my best, in my opinion, of complying with these ever-changing diets. It's only 1 meal per day, and besides, it can be fun finding recipes to match whatever weird criteria Paul has this week. This might be a me thing, but whenever I try a new recipe, or one I'm not too familiar with, I tend to be messier when cooking. I mean, it's one thing to kind of auto-cook the pasta recipe you've been making for years, and it's another to be like, oh crap, why are there lemons on the counter? Here, let me scroll through this woman's grandfather's apple orchard essay to see where I use the lemons. Oh, it was step 3, and now I'm on step 7. What's this about flour now? So now there is lemon juice in my eye, behind my contact, and I'm trying to retro flour this piece of meat. This is the problem. Paul came up to me Friday night and said that he doesn't think it's fair that I am so careless with mess when cooking. It makes his job so much harder. I reiterate, the man said the word careless, both syllables, like he wasn't a human with an ability to logically guess the future consequences of one's actions. I took a second and said, before we continue, what do you see as the benefit of your bringing up this conversation with me? And Paul, God bless his little duckling soul, goes, well, if you would clean up, say, half the mess while cooking or right after, it would make my job so much easier. And I asked, will you do half the cooking? And he said, looking me dead in the eye, well, no. I know I can be messy with cooking, using multiple pots, /pans, /bowls, etc. Like I said, especially when I'm cooking something new. But in my defense, I have to learn something new all the time because Paul comes to me with things like, hey, I'm now going to try to avoid tomatoes and peppers because Tom Brady said they're intestinal or inflammatory or whatever. Who cares? My proposal was that we stick to the original. He either cooks or cleans. I don't intentionally make a mess, but I do intentionally try to meet his diet needs. He says that because I work from home for fewer hours, that taking steps to clean up along the way or take a first swipe at cleaning after cooking is a good marital compromise. I refuse. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her husband? Please let us know. I'd tell that guy to just make his own food. You want to flaunt stupid rules at a soon-to-be lawyer? Two can play this game. I was in my final year of law school. As part of our curriculum, we had to accrue a certain number of hours of out-of-class course-related activities. It was a pretty high number of hours, but if you sort of planned to do them over the course of the years, it wasn't so bad. Anyway, there was a list of the activity types you could use to fulfill this requirement: attending conferences, publishing a paper, writing a report on a lecture, etc. But there were caps on the number of hours you could accrue in each category, so you couldn't just do one thing. The highest cap was for law-related internships, almost 50% of the total requirement. So I planned around that and got into an internship in my final year, which would get me above the required number of hours. You had to log your hours in an online system which required you to fill the beginning and end dates for the activity and the number of hours you wish to log. As internships here usually don't have a fixed end date, only a maximum of 2 years, but the company or I could terminate it early. I thought I would just file the paperwork as soon as I finished the internship and it would be golden. However, as soon as I did that, the system rejected my request, stating that I should have filed everything before the end of my internship. I figured this was pretty dumb, since anyone logging internship hours wouldn't know the end date or total hours before the end of their internship. So I went to the university's law department, which I thought would immediately correct this obvious mistake, right? Wrong. I basically got told, tough luck, by the professor in charge, and that I should have applied with a fictitious end date and amount of hours before I finished the internship if I wasn't sure of when I was going to leave it. At this point, I'm super anxious, as this internship represents about 50% of the hours I needed to graduate. I wasn't going to be able to make up for that before my graduation date, and I had already passed the bar exam. In my country, you can take it in your final year of law school. And then it dawned on me. It was so simple, I thought it surely wouldn't work. If they wanted me to fill the online form with made-up data, then by all means, that's what I would do. I logged back into the system and filled out the same information for my internship, but I put the end date in the future. When the system approved the request, I submitted my paperwork with a note. As per instructions of Professor Z, I hereby request an amendment to the end date of my internship period according to the attached documents. Got full credit for the hours I needed, graduated on time, have been working as a lawyer for the past 10 years. Edit. Wow, I wrote this and went to bed, and it blew up overnight. Thank you for the awards, people. You are amazing. For the people who are concerned that this report doesn't belong in malicious compliance, please read this subreddit's description. People conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. You don't need to leave someone else in a bad spot for it to be malicious compliance. Am I the jerk for telling my friend she doesn't give fashion advice? She just tells people they're too poor? I have one of these friends who's trying to become an Instagram model who eventually has a lifestyle brand. At first, her unsolicited commentary on our clothes or makeup bothered me, but eventually I kind of recognized it for what it was and set it aside. But recently, she's gotten a solid following based on rating people's looks and giving makeover advice. Now, sometimes younger people on campus will earnestly ask her for fashion advice. One of her most common tips is, "Don't wear the same thing so often. By the time you wear an outfit a second time, there should have been enough time for people to forget you've ever worn it." The problem is, that's only possible if you have a lot of different clothes to mix and match. Recently, I heard her giving a mutual friend some fashion advice, and it amounted to, "I've seen you in that before. Don't wear it again. It signals that you don't care about your appearance, and therefore yourself, if you don't take the time to have different outfits every day." I happen to know that friend is going through a really difficult time financially due to lockdown, so I finally, after a lot of less direct comments through the years, just said straight out, after the girl had left, "That's not fashion advice. That's just telling people they should have more money to spend on clothes," and explained a lot of her advice kind of translates to, "You're too poor to look good if you don't have the money to execute the tips." Most of her advice is that kind of thing though. Buy a brand new name bag, wear more jewelry, don't use convenience store makeup, etc. So it led to her being really hurt as I broke it down and she realized it encompassed most of her repertoire. I didn't mean for it to be hurtful, it just seemed like something she needed to hear since I think she means well. She says I insulted her livelihood and am just jealous of her skills / don't respect her as a professional. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I don't want her to hurt anyone either. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her friend? Please let us know. Her friend reminds me of myself in my younger years. Oh, how I wish Instagram had been around back then. The avalanche of gift cards incident. This incident happened when I worked at a restaurant inside an amusement park around 5 years ago. One day, like normal, this nice elderly lady came to the register and asked me if she's allowed to pay for her food with a gift card. I told her yes, she can purchase the food with it, and if there's any left on the card, I can tell you if. Also, the remaining balance can be paid with either cash or credit. So she proceeded to order about $100 worth of food. She was with the family. Now, after what happens next, I should have said no in the first place. Why? She then proceeded to open up her purse and took out a huge stack of gift cards. Like for some reason, she had around 100 gift cards of this company in her purse. She told me that she buys the cards for her grandkids, and when the kids think they are done with it, they return the card to her. And she didn't know if the cards had money on them. So before she was going to discard them, she wanted me to process it to see if there's something in the cards, so it can be used to pay for the order. So me, since I told her yes, she started to give me the cards one by one. Some had just a few cents, some had a few dollars, and some had nothing at all. So after processing around 50, more or less, gift cards, she managed to pay for the whole thing with the leftover of all those cards. Now, the funny thing happens next. The computer/register thinks that every single card has a different owner. Therefore, it printed the same receipt around 50 times. The receipt that came out for each card would make the ones we get from going to CVS go to shame, or at least go toe-to-toe. Each receipt had all of the food, but also all of the deduction/transaction of every single gift card used in the order. The receipts came out one by one. After like the 10th one out, the lady stood in shock of how many receipts there were. The printer kept puking out more and more, to the point I was about to get covered with receipts if it wasn't for my supervisor and boss luckily showing up to see me trying to handle this predicament. They stood there with me, and like 5 minutes into this thing, the printer's still giving more receipts. Then the whole roll of receipt paper ran out and asked for more paper since it still needed to print more. We replaced it and it kept giving us more and more. Another few minutes and then finally stopped. So after this thing finished, I finally could get the next customer. Luckily, we have more than one register, so there was no downtime. But now it gets even funnier. When I took the next customer and I went through to open the menu button to input the customer's order, the computer/register decided to die. It just turned off. It didn't want to turn on. I checked everything. My supervisor and boss also did, and we couldn't find anything wrong. The register just went kaput, or decided it needs a break. But later on in the day, we managed to get it up and proceeded the day as normal. So yeah, this is one of the funniest incidents that happened to me when I worked at a restaurant. Am I the jerk for not giving my adult son a job in my company because of his attitude? My son, 26, male, is really hard to work with. I, 46, male, love him, but let's be honest, he is a jerk at the workplace. He does not know how to argue, and every little argument is like a state of survival. He does not understand where to stop. If he's arguing with someone, he will go any way to win that fight for him. His therapist/psychiatrist said he has borderline personality disorder, and he uses antipsychotics, but it's still in a really uncomfortable level. I also raised him single. His mom was an addict, and she is currently in a full-term care center due to severe disabilities after a traffic accident. My son only saw her twice in his whole life. My son never managed to hold a job other than working as an independent data analyst for pharmaceutical sector. He is really hard to work with, really rude, and he does not understand teamwork. I also manage a company in healthcare sector. We, me and my brother-in-law, have a company that produces spare parts for medical devices. This month, our company needed a data analyst, and my son had just had a contract finish, so he was free, but I directly shut down the idea. I love my son as a dad, but as a boss, I would fire him in the first week. He means trouble. I told all of this in executive board meeting. My brother-in-law agrees with me, but one of the board told this to my mom. She is also a close friend of mine and supported me in this journey, and she told it to my son. My son and I had a big fight, and he had to be hospitalized due to mental disturbance. Everyone thinks I still see him as a baby, and I'm trying to helicopter him. Edit. The board member is my mom's goddaughter and a real close friend of mine. It's the most normal thing for her to say to my mom. Also, my mom did our accounting for a while when we first started as a company, so I trust them both. Edit. Second, I'm not firing my executive board member, and it was just a genuine mistake she made. She never thought, neither did I, my mom would give this kind of reaction. We learned to be more discreet against my mom now. So, am I the jerk, dear folks? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is his son? Please let us know.
That's how I feel working with you every day, Mr. Reddit.
Am I the jerk for allowing my cats to be cats? To give a little background, I just moved into a pet-friendly apartment 2 days ago. I have 2 cats. One is 5 pounds and the other is 8 pounds. This apartment is on the 2nd floor and all of the floors are hardwood. There's also no verbiage on the lease requiring tenants to put down carpets in these units. When I was looking at this apartment, the landlord stated that the downstairs tenant can be a bit sensitive to noise. At the time, I thought he was being a little extreme, but I've since learned that's not the case. On the day I moved in, the neighbor from downstairs decided to introduce himself. During his introduction, he mentioned that in the past he's had a lot of issues with noise from the unit I'm moving into, and that he hoped we'd be good upstairs neighbors. I told him that I'm generally a quiet person and that noise shouldn't be an issue. Well, today when I got home from work, I found a notice on my apartment door from management stating that I was reported for having dogs in the apartment, which is against the lease, and that if I don't correct the situation immediately, I'll be evicted. I find this shocking because 1. I don't have dogs, and 2. The landlord knows I have 2 cats. I immediately sent an email to my landlord stating that I don't have dogs and that I believe he put the notice on the wrong unit. I'm still waiting for his response. Cats being cats, they tend to get the zoomies every now and then, which basically amounts to them running up and down the hall and jumping up and down from the couches. Along with this, there's also jumping from the couches to the cat tree to the floor during the non-zoomy time and playing with their toys, which have bells and such, but should not be audible from the lower floor. To me, this is all reasonable noise considering this is a pet-friendly apartment. It's not like I have 2 obese cats either. They're both under 10 pounds, and I keep their claws trimmed to limit the clacking and to save my furniture. Yesterday, before I received this complaint, I bought a 16-foot runner to go down the hallway so that the cats don't make as much noise while running. But regardless of the carpet, which will arrive next week, I feel that he's being unreasonable and has a warped perspective on what apartment living is like, especially for someone on the first floor. There will always be noise, and that's just a fact. I shouldn't have to feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own apartment. Am I the jerk? Karen secretly films me jogging and shows video to my boss. I recently had an emergency appendectomy, and recovery has been slow. I had to take time off from my own athletics, but worse, from coaching in the kids' sports program I'm involved in. The experience made me step back and realize I really built my whole identity around being active and healthy. So the hit my physical abilities took as a result of being sick, plus the healing process, has made me feel lost. I've been working to regain the joy I used to experience from exercise without going, "Oh, you used to be so much faster with that," or "Your technique used to be so much stronger," or "You don't fit in anymore," or whatever else, and just enjoy myself regardless of the level I'm at. But ironically, the anxiety about not being able to do what I used to has made regaining those abilities difficult. It made me self-conscious about exercising in public spaces, but I was starting to finally get over it as friends convinced me the source of the concerns were all in my head. There's no way to get back to it other than training, so despite the anxiety, I started running again as soon as the doctors approved it. I went to the local track and just did a few slow laps each morning, building up speed every few days, and I've only just been authorized to add some sprints and body weight strength training to the mix. Occasionally, there were other people at the track, but I didn't really notice because I run with headphones on and try to zone out in these lighter sessions. But little did I know, my friends were wrong. It was not all in my head. I was being watched, and more than that, I was being judged. My absolute catastrophe level worst nightmare at this stage of building back my strength and speed. On Friday, I was setting up for practice at the kids program, and the head coach asked me into his office because a parent had a complaint. A parent I didn't know too well. Karen was there, and he said she had specific complaints about me. The meeting almost didn't happen because of Karen's initial refusal to put on a mask, required in our facilities for now. But eventually, her desire to tell on me for whatever she thought she had on me overrode her freedoms to infect everyone. I was a bit nervous, as is anyone being called to meet with their boss over a complaint. But I figured it was a classic case of, "My kid should start more," or "I know my kid tried out as a midfielder, but I want him/her to switch to defense." That kind of "rules don't apply to me" thing. But instead, I sit down in the office and Karen is playing my boss a video of me running on the track that she filmed from afar. It's surrounded by stadium-style risers. I was horrified, both because no one is ever totally used to seeing themselves on video and because I was just embarrassed about how slow I was. But most importantly, because why was a virtual stranger, I had met her personally maybe 4 times ever, filming me while I ran on my own time at a private facility? She then went on to explain that her 8-year-old son, one of the players on my squad, was lapping me in the video and insisting the coaches need to hold themselves to a higher athletic standard than the young players if they want to prepare them for college teams. Again, her son is 8. Apparently, her son would sometimes be running on the track while her older kid was practicing on a nearby field. I never noticed. The kid is still relatively new, and I don't pay much attention to the other people on the track. My boss patiently but firmly explained to Karen that my physical abilities are not the parents' concern, and all personnel are closely managed by the head coaches who understand each unique situation and what's appropriate, and that her son wouldn't be impacted. Karen then went on to say my being out of shape was probably connected to why I'd been taking so much time off lately. Technically yes. it's because I was in the hospital, and complaining that the personnel changeover isn't good for the kids. My boss again reiterated that the head coaches hadn't changed or taken any time off, and that I was still one of the most skilled in the area I instruct, so this was not her concern. She asked if there was someone else she could speak to, but he explained that he was the owner and founder of this program, so no, there was not. I knew my boss was intentionally avoiding saying what had happened to me or even alluding to a health issue to protect my privacy, but I figured maybe being transparent with her would show her how ridiculous she was being and keep her tuition dollars in our program during a difficult time for sports clubs. But when I explained, she just turned to the boss and said,
Well, maybe you should furlough her until she's healed and bring on a healthy coach in the meantime, because my son needs someone out there who can keep up with him.
My boss respected what I was trying to do, but made clear we weren't going further with that strategy to avoid setting a precedent of sharing coaches' personal circumstances. Telling her why people take time off or what their health status may be is not her concern, because the program manages that and makes appropriate decisions. She kept kicking up a fuss, but the coach finally told her that he had to get back out on the field, back to her son and everyone else's kids. She started physically leaving, but continued fussing about how she was not satisfied and would not be recommending us to other parents. Pro tip: not the way to conduct yourself with the people who make recommendations to scouts concerning family culture/team interaction. The coach wasn't preparing to leave. Instead, he stopped her in her tracks to tell her if she was found to be surveilling or otherwise harassing any staff members again, she would be permabanned from the program. No games or practices, no team social events, no presence in our buildings, and no clemency. So that was pretty satisfying. Her son is a good, average kid, and I'm glad the consequences were focused on booting her out rather than limiting his opportunities to have fun playing. So then we went out and had a great, happy, safe practice. This was still a pretty upsetting event for me personally though, and I'll never unsee that discouraging video of me running. But it was ultimately reassuring to know the other staff have my back. Leaving Karen in the dust is just another step on my road to recovery. Speaking of baseball, what's your favorite sport? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for telling my sister, try staying married longer than a year before giving me marriage advice? I know the title sounds bad, but give me a chance to explain. My husband, 30 male, and I, 30 female, like to make rules for our life. I find there's a lot of freedom in rules. I know I can do whatever I want inside a certain set of parameters, and there is no way my husband will have an issue with anything. Same goes for him. To be clear, I am more passive, and he is the alpha in the relationship, but I prefer that in a partner. That was one of the qualities that attracted me to him. However, we both make rules for ourselves. Tonight, we were having a Zoom double date for Valentine's Day, when my husband said, "New family rule. From now on, we will only buy Perrier water instead of San Pellegrino." I laughed and said, "Seconded." My sister said it was weird that we made rules, and it didn't seem like it was a healthy thing to do in a relationship. That it's controlling. What if I like San Pellegrino? I explained that we both have to agree in order for a new rule to be added. She just kept saying negative things about my relationship and how I need to be a strong, independent woman that doesn't need rules. I got upset. I like the rules, and she was making my husband out to be some controlling crazy person that he isn't. I got so fed up with her badgering that I snapped and said, "Try staying married longer than a year before giving me marriage advice." She screamed in outrage and notified me that her daughter, my niece, was in the same room doing homework and heard me, that I disrespected her, and worse, did it in front of her daughter. I don't know. Am I the jerk? Edit. I was mid-responding to a comment post when the post got deleted, so I will share it here. They had some questions. Wow, I know this comment doesn't reflect me in the best light, but it's awesome. You went through a lot of work in reading through my previous posts and comments, and I hope you weren't bored to tears. I feel both honored and insecure at the same time. I will try my best to answer all the things you brought up. Most of my friends are/were guys from school. It's always been easier to make guy friends. After school ended, we never saw each other anymore in person, and they just became text/online friends. After getting married, my husband and I both agreed no friends of the opposite gender. I don't want to put all the blame on him for this rule, so the male friends I still had, I explained to them the situation, and they wished me the best in life. You are correct that my sister is aware of the rule system. I'm not sure which ones you guys will think are weird, because I thought the no friends of the opposite gender was normal. My parents are the same way. so I wasn't leaving out critical information on purpose. I use the term alpha because people understand what it means. I wanted to use the word dominant partner, but I thought people would think we were into something else, which we aren't. I like having a partner that's more dominant. My parents are both equal, and they have 4-hour-long arguments about things because they don't want to concede an inch of power. I don't care about the little things, and I'd rather have a happy life than fight every day. I don't know. It's just what I wanted, and if I'm not bothering anybody else, it shouldn't be an issue. You are correct that I married my boyfriend last year, so we haven't reached the long-term relationship of 20+ years. However, I'm not the one giving people unwanted relationship advice. All I was trying to convey in my snap was that she was in no place to give advice. He can be quite stubborn, but when something matters to me, I can and will use my voice to stand up for myself. Thank you for reading and for taking the time to respond. I hope I addressed everything. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
Oh, I can't wait to read what our audience thinks about this one.
You're not allowed to be in pain because you're scaring your grandma. So I was working for about 7 hours yesterday. I'm 16, and I had a really tough day. I work at a grocery store, and I was the only CC, my position, for about 3 hours. On a Saturday afternoon, for perspective, we need at least 3 CCs to keep up with all the work that needs to be done on Saturday afternoons, and I was the only one. So the work of 3 people fell to me. That's all the bagging, all the getting carts, the cleaning, everything. It was all on me. And it's the day before Valentine's, so we were even busier than normal. Oh, and it never got above 5 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wind chill kept us negative all day. All in all, I ended up spending over 2 hours outside, pushing carts like there was no tomorrow. The time I spent inside was mostly bagging for 2 or 3 people at once. So, as you can imagine, I was exhausted when I got home. I laid down in front of the fireplace and didn't move for about 10 minutes. My mom gets down beside me and tries to get me to stand up. She tells me that I'm scaring my grandma, who was staying the night at our place. My dad walks over, upset as heck, and practically screams at me to get up. I tell him, truthfully, that I physically can't move. He doesn't care. So I pull myself up, trying desperately not to pass out, and try to go upstairs to take a shower. Only after all of this do they bother to ask me what's wrong. I tell them, I feel like I broke my back. My mom tells me that if this is what I'm going to act like when I get home from work, that I need to quit. I tell her that this is pretty unusual, even for a Saturday before a holiday. For those of you wondering, there were multiple CCs scheduled for that afternoon, but the one that would have been working with me when I was alone got snowed in at a ski resort with no cell service, so she couldn't make it. She couldn't even call anyone, so she got marked as a no-show, no-call. That upset me because she texted me via Wi-Fi and I passed all that information on to the manager. So now I'm sore as heck and I'm pretty upset at the manager. Lucky me. Edit. For those of you saying that I'm working too hard, you're right, but I'm doing the work because they need me to do it. It's called work ethic. I'm not doing it because I'm getting paid through the roof. I'm doing it because I care. Working hard enough to be in this much pain shouldn't be cause for insult. Edit 2. Guys, I got a ton of people thinking that I'm complaining about the work. I get that it was too much for me to handle, and I get that the manager was being a jerk for not giving me at least a little help. But I'm not complaining about it. It's work. Sometimes there's tough days, and sometimes there's easy ones. Also, this absolutely blew up, so there's no way I can respond to everybody. But thank you for all of the support. I really appreciate it. And by the way, my back is fine. I just needed a few days of nothing to recover. See and say. I have plenty of horrible stories from working over toys and electronics at a large retail chain. I thought this subreddit would like this story. Names changed for obvious reasons. Cast. We've got me. We've got the clueless training manager. And we've got the frantic granny. So I apparently have some kind of death wish because I started working there the last week of October. It was a frenzy and I was put in charge of the toys and electronics sections, the 2 busiest sections for this time of year. Fast forward to Christmas Eve. By this time, I was pretty comfortable in my role in closing the store. I was working with clueless training manager for my training. He was about my age, 30s, but pretty out of touch with anything not dealing with hunting and sports. We're getting ready to close the store and I hear wailing. Not screaming, but it sounds like someone's world is ending. I round the corner and there's a woman losing her mind and poor training manager just looks helpless. I get the mental, help me scream, so I come up and ask, me, is there something I can assist with today? Frantic granny, I'm the worst grandmother ever. I forgot what kind of toy I'm supposed to get my granddaughter and they are on a plane. I can't call and ask. Me. Oh no. Can you try to describe it to me? Frantic Granny. It's the one with the pictures. Me. That doesn't really narrow it down much. Can you remember anything else? It says the pictures. Now, while I am in my 30s, I don't have kids, but I can vaguely form a picture of what she's talking about. I can't quite name it yet, but I definitely recall it from my days of being a youth assistant in my kids' church growing up. I'm a heathen now. Training manager. I can walk you over to our infant section and we can look there and see. Granny cuts him off. I already looked there. I didn't see it. They are going to ban me from being grandma if I don't get this toy. I highly doubted this, but training manager asked her to humor him and they walked back over to the infant section. I had a hunch out of nowhere and walked to our tucked away retro toys section, and there it was staring me in the face. The See-and-Say in all its glory. I could barely hide my smile as it hid behind my back and tracked them down to an infant. Granny. It isn't here. It isn't here. Over and over. Me. Ma'am, is this the toy you were looking for? She sees it and instinctively leaps at me, giving me a surprisingly powerful hug. That's it. That's the toy. Oh, thank you both, thank you so much. Tears of joy were streaming down her face as she continued to hug both of us. After a few more seconds of gratitude, she puts the toy in her cart and says in the coolest cool granny way possible, Granny of the Year, thanks to you boys. I never knew a $10 toy could bring someone that much joy. Huh, neat. Do you remember any retro toys that you loved when you were little? If so, what were they? Please let us know. I had this little electric piano that made animal sounds. Oh, I miss that thing so much. You want to change my hours without telling me? Okay, I'm gonna make you quit your job. So I worked in a fairly popular shipping company. It was Amazon. Amazon has this thing called flex hours. So if they wanted, they could add or take away an hour from your shift. That would be fine, but according to the Amazon rules, if the adjusted hours are not shown by the middle of our shifts, then we could follow our normal scheduled hours. Here's the thing, my warehouse managers were lazy jerks and hated doing anything except standing and looking pretty. Also, when they changed the flex hours, they wouldn't change it on your official schedule until it was too late to make a report about it. So I had a bit of personal time, which is the time we can use to get out of our shifts early or come in late. So I decided that I was going to leave work a little bit early because I was going to go into the city with my friend Peter. Now, I put in the request on the app that Amazon gives all of its workers for my hour of leaving early. Now at this point, it was the middle of my shift, so no flex was given to us according to our knowledge. I leave early and then a few hours later I get a text stating that I left too early. This was false because my end of shift would have been at 5:45 and I left at exactly 4:45. So I went in the next day and boom, walk into HR. I say to the lady, Hi, you guys said I left early, but I didn't. I have the photo evidence right here of me putting in the request with no flex on my schedule. Then I got a, No sir, the correct hours were posted. So I show her a screenshot on my original schedule and a picture of the board where the adjusted hours are put onto, which was not showing adjusted hours at all. She said, Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure the managers made an announcement. What did I do? Well, clearly I said, nope. Her final chance to get me was a really petty thing to say, but she said, You have no proof, these are the rules. And oh boy, I did. Out of my bag, I pulled out the entire Amazon Warehouse Associate Rule Guide that they give every single worker a digital copy of. I turned to the part about flex hours and showed her that she was in the wrong as HR. She finally broke and gave me all my hours back without any write-ups, plus all the paid time off time I had used that past week. This happened like 20 more times after the fact. I was able to get away with it every time because I actually spoke up and had the proof to back me up. Mrs. HR ended up being so stressed out by it that she trained 4 new people and officially left the company in August. Because of my malicious compliance with the Amazon rules, they even changed the official policy on flex time because my reporting of it caused almost everyone to follow suit and also report their issues with it. Am I the jerk for leaving Zoom call with family after the way my mom talked to my fiance? My fiance, 41 female, and I, 28 male, have been together for 3 years. Yes, I know there's an age gap, and that's what the problem has been for my mom. The rest of my family were eventually cool with it once they got to know her. We're both very happy in our relationship, have lived together over a year, and 4 months ago I proposed. Just a few weeks ago, we found out she's pregnant and couldn't be happier. I'm beyond excited about becoming a dad and starting a family with her, which is what we plan to do at some point after getting married. We decided to announce it a couple days ago during a Zoom call with my family. It was my fiance and myself, my parents, my sister, my 2 aunts, and my brother. Everyone congratulated us when we told them, and my mom was the only one who was silent. I knew she always had a problem with my relationship because of the age gap, no matter how many times I told her I'm very happy and she's the love of my life. She never actually said anything directly to my fiance, but she's aware my mom's not a fan. This time, my mom practically blew up at her. My mom actually said, "How dare she trap me into this relationship?" As if we weren't already engaged. She just did this to make sure I had no choice but to stick around for the baby's sake. My dad tried to calm her down, but my mom was too upset and angry. My fiance looked really hurt, and I snapped at my mom. I said she had no right talking to my fiance like that and acting like it's on her that she got pregnant, as if I had no part in that. It got pretty heated, and the last thing I told her is I don't want to talk to her until she's ready to apologize and respect my fiance. Before anyone else said anything, I left the chat. My fiance was still really hurt, and it took some time for us both to calm down. Everyone else after that said I acted like a jerk when it's obvious my mom was just blindsided by the news and wasn't thinking right. That what I should have done was talk to my mom instead of rudely ending the call and making it awkward for them. My mom is still mad and won't talk to me, and my family is taking her side here for the way I reacted. But whenever I point out how she reacted and treated my fiance, she tells me I should have been more understanding of her feelings. So I don't know. Was I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Was OP the jerk, or was his mom? Please let us know.
Sounds like mom got a taste of her own medicine.
HR maliciously reject leave request. Ensuing malicious compliance results in a ridiculous amount of leave taken all within the rules. I work in a UK company that has a very good leave policy. I get 27 days annual leave, and I can also build up flex time and take up to 2 flex days off per month. In addition, due to a mess up in HR, I'm allowed to float all my public holidays. I was moved to a joint venture company for tax and legal purposes, and when they took me back into the parent company, they just adopted my contract from that company instead of getting me to sign a new one. One day, I put in a leave request for 3 leave days and 2 flex days. HR person denied it as she said it was against the rules to mix flex and normal leave days. The rules had changed some time ago to allow mixing, but HR person told me that it was against the rules. I took it higher, and her decision was overturned, but she did not like it one little bit. Thereafter, whenever I submitted a request with mixed leave, she rejected it out of spite, claiming that it was not in the spirit of the rules. It is an interesting view into her mindset that she refused instead of asking how she could do it too. She was all about stopping me, so the fight began. Easter was coming up, and I was due to take 2 weeks off. The middle Friday of my holiday was also the end of my leave month, and the Monday started a new month, so I put in for 2 public holidays carried over from Christmas, 2 flex days, and a Good Friday public holiday, and since the second week was a new leave month, I used another 2 days of flex, plus the public holiday Easter Monday and 1 day of public holiday from the start of the year. So my 14 days holiday in the sun cost me a single Friday, which is 5 hours of leave time. She went ballistic, but could do nothing despite trying to find any way to stop the request. As a direct result of her trying to stop me, I now make a point of building up and using as much flex leave as I can just to see her pretending to smile as I handed my request to her directly every single time. She grits her teeth so much, I expect her to break a jaw. In 2019, I peaked and managed almost 60 days of leave, all thanks to her. Maybe I should thank her. Karen the thief gets caught, and now she's in jail. So I'm from the UK. So a store we have here is Asda, which is basically a small Walmart. I had just done some midweek shopping to top up on some essentials, which included some toiletries. Most notably for this story, shower gel. I am in the car park outside the store when a woman pulls in. My Karen sensors were going crazy at this point. It's like she had won the Karen bingo in terms of looks and posture. She gets out of her car with her son, who is about 3 or 4, and spies on me and my clear plastic bag with shower gel showing through, and immediately runs to me so fast I can see her outline in smoke beside her car. Karen: "Excuse me, what is that in your bag?" Me: Messages?" In Scotland, we call groceries messages. It's weird, but who cares? Karen.
Well, I just spotted that bath soap.
She actually said that.
And was wondering if I could get a look at it.
The Karen alarms are going off at this point. Me. Why? It's in there. Third aisle. Karen.
Oh, it's just to see the brand. I've never seen that one before.
I show her the bottle, but hold on to it when she tries to snatch it like a wig.
Oh, come on. I can't even see the name that far away. Give it here, now.
Now, I've been on this subreddit for a while now, so everything in my body was telling me I was getting a story. In my twisted head, I decided to have a little fun. So I started walking towards the shop again, since I knew she would start a fuss and I needed witnesses for this. Me. How could you see it in my bag from your car then if you can't see it from 2 feet away? Karen.
Oh, I had different glasses. These don't let me see close up well. So come on, hand it over.
Another reach for the bottle. Another step away. She nearly fell over on her son, and I had to use all my might to not burst into tears laughing. Me. Well, you wanted to hold it? I'm sorry, I had no clue. I hand her the bottle. For reference, we are now about 10 feet from the entrance. Karen.
Oh, look at that. I can read it now. See, we could have avoided that whole thing if you weren't so dumb.
And with that, in true Karen style, she slowly, while still trying to distract me with small talk about my day, slides the bottle in her bag. Honestly, she deserves some applause for such a stunt. Me. Why did you just put that in your bag? Karen, suddenly looking shocked.
Oh, well, I assumed since you were about to buy all of those,
points to bag, which contains 3 items worth less than £5.
You could afford another one of these, so I could get this one. You must understand how hard it is for a single mom to survive without donations. I can't get work, so this would mean so much.
Wow, okay, she's going full wacko. This is definitely going to be a keeper. Me. I don't think that's how it works. You see, money is earned by working, and you spend the money on items that are yours. You don't steal. Am I getting through to you? Yes, I did the air quotes and explained this to her like the 3-year-old she was standing beside. Suffice to say, this set her off. Karen.
You insolent boy. How dare you talk to me that way? I just needed a simple piece of aid as a single mother. And this is how you treat me?
With that, she turns to walk into the store, hitting me with her arm and bag. Enough to knock me off balance, but forgot 2 things. 1, she had shower gel in her purse without a receipt. And 2, I had some free time on my hands and a head for vengeance. Would it be fair to say that I stood at the entrance / walked around the aisles a bit, waiting for Karen, her son, and her stolen goods to hit the register? Yes, it would be. One thing to be noted was that the toiletries aisle was in disrepair, and so, as I noticed on my way around the store, had no camera or CCTV. You can probably see where I'm going now. Karen is walking to the register with some sweets, I assume for her son. It's go time. I calmly notify security that I may have seen that woman putting some shower gel in her bag. They thank me and watch her going to leave when they stop her. Security. Sorry, miss, but we have reason to believe that you have stolen merchandise. May we please see inside your bag? Karen.
What? I haven't done such a thing. You can't see in my bag.
I want to give this woman an Oscar at this point. Security. If you haven't stolen anything, then open your purse and we'll see nothing and you'll be free to go. Karen, as if suddenly remembering about the shower gel.
No, under no circumstances can you see in here.
Security then calls the police. I even thought this was a bit much, but security said it's protocol. Police. Ma'am, we need to search your bag now. Failure to comply will result in punishment. Karen.
Okay, fine. Here.
She hands over the bag, then immediately spots me by some clothes. Here she catches escape plan B. Karen.
Officers, that boy over there may have put something in my bag. He was hanging around and harassing me and my son the whole time I was in the shop.
Officers call me over. I basically say, heck no, and they find the shower gel. Karen.
See? He's trying to frame me. The one you want is right there.
A store clerk informs the officer that the CCTV in the toiletries aisle is broken, so the police are about to leave and let the store deal with the two of us, as there is no evidence, when part 3 of my plan comes to light. Remember when I said that I moved Karen to the front of the store, where CCTV is present? Me. Actually, I had a confrontation with Karen in front of the store that may explain this whole thing. Can we please check the footage, officers? I swear I saw a vein in Karen's head pop as she realized that she was in deep trouble. With that, she ran directly at me, like a bull seeing red, leaving her son standing there. Just saying, I'm a pretty skinny guy, so I was about to scream when, once again, my brain saved me. What was this expert plan? I stepped to the left a bit. Karen kept going. She ran straight into a register, immediately got winded, and kind of just stood there, glaring at me. Her face was redder than a tomato, and I just had a slight smirk on my look of surprise. We checked the cameras while Karen was put in a police car. Sure enough, the whole confrontation was plainly visible. She's now getting jail time for taking a bottle of shower gel. Me 1, Karen -2. Edit. Some context as to why Karen got jailed, as far as I was told. She apparently had caused some trouble in the store before. Antisocial behavior, an employee told me. So the police already had history dealing with her. She seemed quite unhinged, so this made sense. I understand that this is honestly quite unbelievable, but I'll answer any questions you have with the limited knowledge of her history in the area. Classmate is mad I'm forcing her to eat ethnic food. Go eat a loaf of bread. This happened about a year ago now when I was in high school. My calculus class was very chill, about 20 kids who were all friendly with each other, a laid-back but enthusiastic teacher, and a light enough workload that we could afford to goof off in class but still learn and do well. At some point in the year, I got really into cooking. It's my stress reliever. My family couldn't possibly eat the amount of food I made, so I started bringing it into school and hosting Friday parties in my calc class, with my teacher's approval, of course. Now, I'm Vietnamese and live in a predominantly white town. This is only important because it's meant that most kids from my town only ate American or European foods and weren't used to eating other ethnic foods. Last year, around Lunar New Year, I wanted to bring in some Vietnamese foods to celebrate. It's a very important time of year for my family. I ended up making a bunch of bánh de lon, a steamed layer cake, and a traditional Vietnamese dessert. Some of my friends from class found out I was going to bring in a traditional dish and brought in their own traditional dishes from their own cultures, whether they celebrated Lunar New Year or not. We had different Indian, Korean, Filipino, and Spanish desserts. It was great, and I was really excited that my friends wanted to celebrate with me. Apparently, there was an issue for one girl in my class. I would say bánh de lon is an acquired taste, so when not a lot of people ate it, I wasn't offended. I knew not everybody would like it. There was a lot of other food anyways. During our lunch period, one of my friends, who wasn't in our class but knew I brought food in, overheard a girl from my class complaining about the food while on the lunch line. Apparently, she was saying really negative things about how I forced everyone to eat weird Chinese foods. Later that day, I texted her just saying I heard she didn't like the food and wanted to know why. I don't really care when people don't like the food. I make it for myself and bring it in when I have extra anyways. But her calling it weird Chinese food when she knows I'm Vietnamese didn't sit right with me. Well, she texted back that it was rude of me to bring in weird ethnic foods that nobody could have liked except for me, and said I should have known better since most of the class was white. I told her that I bring in food to share because I feel like it and that I don't have an obligation to cater to her tastes. If she has an issue with it, she literally does not have to eat it, and other people can bring in food too. So if she wanted to, she could bring in something more to her tastes. After that, she just told me that I shouldn't bring in ethnic and foreign foods and stick with American foods because we're in America. Excuse me? Like, how much you want to bet if I brought in jambalaya, which originated in Louisiana, she would call it a weird foreign food? Fine. She only wants to eat American foods, then she can eat American foods. The next week, I brought in a bunch of Oli Bol, a Dutch donut, and started passing them out at the beginning of class. When I got to her desk, I pulled out a loaf of Wonder Bread and plopped it on her desk, saying, "Sorry, but these are Dutch, too ethnic. Here you go, all American cuisine." Later, she texted asking what the heck my problem was, so I told her that almost every single food I brought in this year was ethnic, and that it ticked me off that she had only had an issue when it wasn't European. She's entitled to not liking Asian foods, but if you're going to complain about it being ethnic, then you better have that same attitude when the ethnic food is white. And especially, don't call another person's culture weird. She didn't complain about the food again. Also, before anyone comments, white bread isn't the only American cuisine out there. Here's a short list of what I've enjoyed making. Tater tots, jambalaya, fried chicken, many types of pies, s'mores, and Philly cheesesteaks. America is a very diverse place, and that's reflected in its food. Happy eating. Speaking of food, what's your favorite food of all time? Please let us know. I'd do anything for some pancakes right now, with coconut cooked into them. Yes. Am I the jerk for not letting a customer use me to scare her kid into behaving? I work at a home goods store as a cashier, and this afternoon we had a woman come in with her young son. He was probably overtired, and because of this, he was screeching and throwing fits and touching everything, making messes. He was screeching so loud, I could hear him plain as day when they were all the way in the back of our store. Having worked with kids, this is annoying, but it doesn't ruin my day. I just ignore it and get on with my job. I stay behind the counter most of the time, and the mom and son come back up to look at the flash displays we have near the register. The boy was in rare form and kept grabbing stuff off shelves and trying to throw them in the cart. The mom was trying her hardest to corral him, but he was bored and probably sleepy, and his behavior kept getting worse. The mom looks at me. I lower my mask and give her a smile so she knows everything is fine, just to make her feel better. This woman turns to her son and says, "If you don't behave, that lady behind the counter is gonna get you and spank you." The boy looked at me and went silent and looked scared. I do look kind of unusual if you're not expecting someone like me. I'm a rather large woman, heavy in weight, and our uniforms are all black, so I also wear a black face mask. I also have hair dyed algae green and wear violet pink contact lenses. Not scary, but definitely unusual for our area. I could tell the boy was now fearful of me, and the mom just kept saying, "She's gonna get you and make you behave. She's gonna take you to the back room and make you work if you keep grabbing things." That made me feel bad. I feel like she was using my non-typical appearance and my position as a cashier to scare her son because she thought I was an acceptable target. I don't want kids to be scared of me. I want to be a safe haven for kids in case they get lost or hurt. Someone they feel will help them if they need it. So I told the boy, "Don't worry, buddy. I'm not gonna get you. I'm really nice, I promise." I smiled at him. It seemed to make him feel better, but he went right back to messing around. The mom gave me this look like she hated me and said, "I just needed to calm him down. Thanks for nothing." She grabbed him and left, leaving a cart full of stuff I had to put away. My manager asked me why the lady stormed off, was watching the cams, so I told him. He said it was bad customer service and I should have gone along with her. Was I the jerk for not letting a customer make a villain out of me for a kid? Edit. The lady also referred to me as the scary lady at one point, and by saying that I would make her son work if he misbehaved made me feel badly about my job, like it's a punishment to work this job. I love my job. Other than the manager mentioned above, this is a generally good workplace. My coworkers and I are close, and the customers are usually great. Well, what do you think? Should OP have gone along with what the customer was saying or not? Please let us know. The customer could always learn to be a better parent. Like that's ever gonna happen. Entitled dude thinks he should use my laptop because I was at the library. Disclaimer. This happened in like 2019, and at that time I had a laptop for school. As I have an exam in a week, I went to the library to find the textbooks and other resources to study for it. It was a closed book exam, but we were allowed a 2-page singular cheat sheet, so I was planning to type everything on a Google Doc that my friends and I all did, so we can all print it out before the exam. So I was trying to finish the lessons that I was assigned to do the cheat sheet for. Luckily, I found a table at a secluded area of the library. I sit there for a good 45 minutes to an hour when I hear someone clearing their throat rather loudly. Enter entitled dude. "Excuse me, you've been using that computer for more than an hour now. You need to let other people like me use it." Me. The library computers are on the other side of the level over there. Points in the other direction. Entitled dude. "No, I don't want to walk all the way over there. Just give me this one." Me. "This is my own laptop. Get your own." This ticks him off apparently. He tries to take my laptop, which I moved out of the way, which caused me to push my stationery to fall on the floor, causing a loud thud. This causes the librarian to walk over. Librarian. "What's going on here?" Entitled dude. This girl is hogging the computer and not letting me check my emails.
Me. This is my own laptop, and not the library's. Librarian looks at the sticker-covered laptop. Yes, sir, that is her laptop and not the library's. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave, as you are disturbing other readers. Entitled dude huffs and walks out of the library. I left the library at about 5 p.m. as the library had to close early for their reasons. I saw this dude waiting outside the darn library. He stood outside the library for an hour. I saw him and decided to walk out the other way around the building and walked home. Halfway home, I had to make a turn at like a road corner with a mirror for like cars to see if anyone is turning. I look at it and found the guy following me. I sprinted across the bridge and all the way home. To this day, I don't know what the heck was this dude's problem. Like, he followed me out of the library because I wouldn't let him use my laptop. What the heck? Am I the jerk for throwing my sister out of my house at her own birthday party? I, 24, female, have 2 older sisters, X, 29, and Y, 31. I've been seeing C, 32, male, for a year and a half now. Yes, there's an age difference. No, it has not been an issue. We don't live together, and initially he resisted a relationship with me due to the age difference, and I was wary myself. But we had a lot of conversations and gave it a shot. He's honestly the best person I've ever dated. Communication is great. He respects me entirely, never raises his voice, takes me on dates whenever we can, cooks, helps around the house. Total dreamboat, basically. He's never made me feel inferior for being younger, never tried to parent or control me, encourages my social life, and is as supportive as he can be. Anyway, when we first got together, I was 23 and he was 30. Turned 31 a month or so after we made things official. I mentioned offhandedly to X that I was seeing someone, and she asked the standard questions. I was honest about his age, and she said, gross, lectured me about creeps, and I dropped the topic. My sisters and I are all best friends, and to keep the peace, I mentioned him at a minimum, occasionally mentioning a date we went on or a gift he bought me. Cut to last month. We're celebrating my sister's 29th birthday. Lockdown is a non-issue where we live at this point. I invite my boyfriend, and this is the first time he's meeting my sisters. So it's me, my boyfriend, my sisters, and their husbands. Things are going well. Boyfriend is charming the pants off of my brother-in-laws. We have some drinks, and then it starts. X starts off with casual questions that progressively get more pointed. Do you usually date girls in their 20s? Plot twist, no, he doesn't. Was he attracted to me because I was younger? So on and so forth. I finally just crack after trying to play off her questions with jokes to ease the tension and point out that yes, we have an 8-year gap. But her and her husband have a 7-year gap. X was 23 and her husband was 30 when they met, and she's a hypocrite for being a jerk to someone who's been nothing but doting and loving towards me. We argue. She says she's trying to protect me by trying to humiliate my boyfriend, and it culminates in me telling her to get out. Her husband was a designated driver and took her home. Y says she doesn't have an issue with what I did, but kicking her out of her own birthday party in my house was maybe a bit much, and she left with her husband. C is supporting me, but says maybe I should apologize just so I can keep the peace. He doesn't want to come between my sisters and I. X went off on me when I called her a week later, told me I was a jerk. She was doing her job as a sister. Y is just not even speaking about it because she doesn't want to take sides. I feel that I should apologize to keep the peace, but was I really the jerk for kicking her out of a party for her when she was that disrespectful? ETA info. I didn't speak to her privately, thanks Studio Apartments, but I did intervene trying to deflect her attitude with jokes and steer conversation elsewhere. She kept talking over me and ignoring me, and her husband subtly trying to tell her to calm down. My sisters have met my boyfriends before, and in my personal opinion, we're asking him inappropriate questions, especially in front of family. And the implication I got from these questions was that she saw him as some weirdo who was trying to take advantage of me, which is not the scenario at all for us. Well, what do you think? Was OP the jerk or was her sister? Please let us know. It's not easy having a Karen for a sister. Entitled mom and entitled grandma make me go to 2 different schools in different time zones and expect me to succeed in both schools. Hello there. I know the title seems ridiculous, but unfortunately it's true. So basically in 2019, my parents decided that they had 2 options. To move to their country of origin, my parents are immigrants. They had me in the country they were from and moved to the States when I was 2, or stay in the States until I and my sister finished high school. Because of a family emergency at the time, my parents found it best to move from the States. We decided to move there in June of 2020,
but because of lockdown and travel bans, we weren't able to. So they decided to enroll me in a school that is in the place we were moving to, and because of lockdown, that school had online classes. I wasn't happy with this for two reasons. One, in September, I would be starting my first year of high school, and I didn't want to miss the experience. Two, I would have to stay up all night to attend classes and meetings for the other school. But I didn't want to complain and make my dad feel bad, so I just kept my mouth shut and smiled. Fast forward a couple of months, we still haven't left the States, and now high school is starting in the US. My mom, who is a complete jerk, and nothing or no one can tell me otherwise, wanted me to also go to school in the mornings. Keep in mind, I haven't left the other school. So now I have to go to two schools. One in the morning, this is the US school, 8 a.m. to 2:10 p.m., and one at night, 7:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. Now you might be thinking that this wasn't so bad, but high school in the US is really stressful, and my mother signed me up for 2 clubs, and I also have football, so most of the week I wouldn't come home until 6 or 7. This went on for a while, but I finally decided to tell my parents that I couldn't do this anymore, and told them that I wanted to stay in the US, where I've been for most of my life. My dad understood, and he told me that since I hadn't said anything to him, that he thought I was okay going to both schools. Mother Dearest, on the other hand, made a big deal out of me not being able to take academic pressure. She and my grandma have been calling me dumb and all sorts of other things. Whenever I come into the dining room to eat, they talk about how I don't study for either school at all and I'm a waste of space and money, etc. You get the point. Am I the jerk for quitting school and making my mom upset? Edit. Some of you have been asking how I didn't pass out on the football field. Before each game, my friends would buy me an energy drink. It helped for like 45 minutes to an hour. I play safety, and my school has a rule that every player on the team has to be in the game for at least 10 minutes. Since I started as safety, I would stay in for about 20 minutes. Edit 2. Some of you suggested that I pursue legal action against my mother. If I do that, my mother will definitely divorce my dad, and due to lockdown, neither of them are able to raise 2 kids, me and my sister, alone, and I don't want to cause any more problems. Thank you though for all of your kind words and support. I have some more stories of my mother. If you guys want, I can share those too. Edit 3. I am a male, 15 years old. Edit 4. A lot, and I mean a lot, of people have messaged me asking what my future ambition is. I don't know why, but to avoid potentially more people asking this question, I want to become a doctor. But I'm not so sure anymore since my first semester of high school was really bad because I was trying to manage both schools. But yeah, that's it. I got a guest fired from his job. At the time, most of the guests at our hotel were businessmen. The guys from this particular company had been staying at our hotel for a while, and I got along very well with a few of them, including the person I later found out was the owner. One evening, probably around 5 or 6, after my manager had left, 3 guys from that company came down and wanted to buy beers and snacks. The first 2 guys, I sold them their beers and snacks, no problem. The third guy, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it made me mad, and I could tell he was already drunk, so I refused to sell him alcohol. In the state I live in, it's illegal to sell alcohol to an intoxicated person, so I used that as my excuse. Well, he did not like this, and he called me names and just started yelling at me. I told him to go back to his room, but he wasn't leaving. Luckily, his 2 coworkers were still in the lobby and took him out of the lobby. He went back to his room and it was over, or so I thought. I got a call from his manager, who I knew, asking what had happened. I guess one of his coworkers called and told him what had happened. I explained what happened and told him how he's not allowed in the lobby if he's going to be drunk and disrespectful. His manager apologized and said he will get him on a new assignment and he will be leaving later this week. He told me if anything else happens to call him. Alright, sounded good to me. About 30 minutes later, dude comes back down yelling at me about how his manager called him and is making him leave. He then pulls out his phone and starts to record me on Facebook Live, saying how I won't sell him alcohol and calling me names. He then goes into the shop and on video steals beer from the cooler. He tells me he's going to get me fired and just started screaming at me again. Unfortunately, his coworkers weren't in the lobby, so all I could do was tell him to go back to his room. He eventually went back to his room. I look up the guest reservation and call the number on file for the manager I had talked to earlier to tell him what happened. I called and got the voicemail for who I thought was his other manager. I knew him as well. I left the voicemail explaining what happened and he called me back almost immediately. He apologized, and since it was late, he couldn't get him a flight that night to leave, but he had a flight first thing in the morning. I then found out that this man was actually the owner of the company. A few days go by and I get a phone call and it was from the HR team. I explained the situation and they apologized. I then got a call from their risk management team and they apologized. Next time I was at work, all of the managers, owner, and employees came and apologized. The guy got fired, and every person in the company had to have a harassment class. Am I the jerk for declining lifts from my girlfriend after she said she didn't want to drive me to work anymore? Me, 25 female, and my girlfriend, 25 female, have a really good relationship up until now, and we never argued or disagreed. When we moved into a flat that me and my sister share, the arrangement was that she would drive me to work 8 miles away, on her way to work 30 miles away, and we would split the fuel, insurance, and any car repairs 50-50. I appreciated this arrangement, and I thought it benefited us. She told me she has started to feel different and now wants to stop driving me to work because she feels overwhelmed and like it's an obligation, which she has every right to change her mind about driving me. It's her car. Although it hurt my feelings, as I didn't realize how I depended on those lifts. I decided to buy a monthly bus pass, and this is where she is upset. The monthly bus pass costs a lot, and for me to get my money's worth, I have to use it more often, and that's what I've decided to do. Meaning, I'm taking the bus not only to work, but to the gym, supermarkets, and to town. We don't have restrictions where I live, and my girlfriend doesn't like this because it means she can't spend as much time with me, and she's now stated that she enjoys driving me to do my errands, but just not to work. But I've started declining all offers of a lift if she's not going to that place as well, because I want to use my bus pass and I don't want to use up her fuel, which she will now have to pay 100% for. But she's thinking I'm being vindictive and punishing her for refusing to take me to work by declining all lifts. I'm conflicted because I don't want her upset, but I also don't see what I've done wrong. But she's been crying over it. So please, am I the jerk? Edit 1. We talked about it last night, and she now wants to drive me to work sometimes, but now all times, so she feels like she has choice in it, and then I would have to start paying for some of the fuel and some of the maintenance. So use the bus half the time and lifts from her sometimes for a smaller percentage than me, and I don't think this will be beneficial to me at all money-wise, and would increase my costs as I've already paid for the bus pass. This makes me think that this is about the money and not necessarily about spending time with me. Edit 2. For people asking, my job is on the way to hers, except for like 2 turns. She moved in with me and my sister, and she's not paying any rent. I don't mind this at all, and unless we move, I wouldn't ask her to pay. Me and my sister are splitting 50-50 and all the expenses, and they get on very well. I'm still a bit conflicted. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is her girlfriend? Please let us know. Just give her a ride. Don't want me splitting up my breaks to help coworkers? It won't happen again. Back when I was in my mid-30s, I needed some extra cash for a lawyer bill, so I picked up an extra job at a national chain hobby store that I won't name, but it has a rhyming 2-word name that lets you know it's a hobby shop. I chose here because they close on Sundays, and they happened to pay a couple of bucks above minimum wage at the time. It was perfect. I would work a few evenings during the week, then a full shift on Saturday doing just basic stocking and cleaning stuff. I didn't really care what I was doing there, and I ended up becoming everyone's preferred helper since I never said no unless I was in the middle of something or had a higher priority. I would even interrupt my breaks to help someone out if they needed it. When that happened, I'd note the time and be sure to make up my missed break when I was finished helping that person out. I even did this for the manager, let's call him John, from time to time with no complaints. It didn't bother me at all. I had my professional career and the temp work wasn't too difficult or degrading. I ended up working there longer than I needed to pay the lawyer bill, and I just stuck the extra cash towards paying off some other debt we had at the time. Everything was fine until one time John saw me in the break room again, taking what he assumed was another break. Naturally, he asked about it, and I explained that my coworker X needed my help with something, so I helped her and now was taking the rest of my 15-minute break. John didn't like that and told me that I could not split my breaks anymore. I had to take the 15 minutes all at once. Okay, if you say so. I didn't care, but it really impacted my coworkers, although they understood why I would not interrupt my break anymore. The real kicker came on Tuesday night when I was the only stalker working. The only other employees were 2 girls as cashiers and John. I had just sat down for my break a minute earlier when John poked his head into the break room to tell me I needed to go pull a chest off a high shelf for a customer. They had already paid for it and were waiting for someone to load it into their car. I turned my head so I could look at the break room clock and told him I'd get right on it in another 13 minutes. He said they needed me now, and I reminded him that I was not allowed to split my breaks and also noted that he was interrupting my break. To make my point even clearer, I stood up and walked around to the other side of the table so I could sit down with my back to John. After the 13 minutes passed, I went up front to find the customers so I could get their chest and stick it in their car. I didn't see John, but a cashier told me that they didn't wait and ended up getting a refund on the purchase. Not sure why John didn't get the chest down himself. It wasn't that difficult. Anyway, John wasn't too happy with me after that, and I didn't stay much longer either. I had earned my cash and didn't need that job by then. Finally, a story worth writing about. Okay, so I, like many others, have been working through lockdown in a major city as an essential worker, doing my best to be safe while working for a company that refuses to enforce safety. So once in a while, I treat myself to a trip to the big blue evil store for some extra treats on top of a few essential items. Only during quieter hours, and only if it has been 1 to 2 months since my last excursion. I'm off work, but dressed in full-on leave-me-alone clothing, winter clothes, looking like a little haggard after a 10-hour shift, with headphones in and a heavy-duty mask. And I was trying to not have an anxiety flare because the lines were a bit long for my liking. I'm leaning on my cart full of stuff, now third in line at the registers, watching a YouTube video, when I make out a person in my 6-foot bubble in my peripherals. Now I'm used to men being gross, so I ignore for a second, but then they get closer. Pulls out my headphones. Hey, please back up, social distance. Also, pull your mask up if you have no choice to get in someone's space. Karen, I was trying to ask if you work here. Now, I literally had a moment. Sometimes the stories here feel embellished, and yet here I am, in line with a cart full of stuff, and this woman is getting in my bubble asking if I work here. Me, am I wearing a blue vest? No, but am I standing in line with a cart full of stuff right at the registers? Yes, but I'm standing here with my headphones in, watching a video. Why the heck do you think I work here? I just back up and put your mask on properly before you find an actual employee. They wear blue vests and name tags, not winter coats, headphones, and carts full of stuff. The person definitely moved off after that. I was clearly in a grumpy, aggressive mood with no tolerance for stupid, even if it was an honest mistake. I blame the horrific handling of lockdown. No, I absolutely won't come with you to your car. So I'm 15 and female. This morning, my older brother called me because the key to his car wasn't working, electric short, and he wanted me to wake my dad up so we could bring him the spare. That I did. So my dad drives us to this 7-Eleven parking lot that my brother is stuck in and hands me his card, telling me to grab him a Coke Zero and get myself something to drink and eat. It's 7:30 a.m. I'm wearing fuzzy slipper boots, leggings, a sick Persona 5 mask that I sewed myself, AirPods, and a Marvel hoodie. I have cotton candy pink hair, and I wear glasses. I'm also 5'1" and look way younger than I actually am unless I'm wearing makeup. In comes Bill. Bill is somewhat over 6 feet tall and large. I don't know if it was fat or muscle, but he was big. I don't have social anxiety. My dad is a musician, so I'm used to being approached by people that I don't know and can generally hold friendly conversation, help people who need help, stuff like that. This guy is not wearing a mask. He looks like if Guy Fieri, the dude from Duck Dynasty, and Joe Exotic had a 400-pound love child. He's wearing a sleeveless muscle shirt with the words, "Keep America Great" on it, and a graphic of the president holding a guitar. I'm standing in front of the fridge door that had energy drinks in it when Bill over here taps on my shoulder. I turned around. In this moment, I felt like Derek Shepherd when the semi-truck was coming. Pure fear. The conversation went as follows. Me. Hey, sorry, am I in your way? Bill. You're awfully young to be working here. Can I see your manager? I don't think pants like that should be allowed on the job. Me, now very confused. I'm sorry, I don't work here. Do you need help? I can get an employee if you need. I picked up 2 orange monsters. My AP test is on the 11th, and I need to get my sleep schedule back on track, so I'm pulling an all-nighter. And moved 6 feet away from the guy. I already had my dad's soda tucked under my arm. Bill. Are you one of them girls who do free car washes? Can you clean out my passenger seat and come home with me? Nobody'll notice. Just say you're on your break. That escalated quickly. For context, I'm black/white/Hispanic mixed, but didn't end up with curly hair or blue eyes. I have brown eyes and very thick and wavy dark brown hair. Me. No, I'm sorry. Let me find you an employee. Bill. "No, it'll be just fine." Bill then reaches for my free hand, which I very sharply pull away. I started walking to the front of the store and he follows a few feet behind. I put my things on the counter and start to check out. Bill is standing like a foot behind me. Employee: "Good morning. Did you find everything okay?" Me: "Good morning. Yes, I did. Thank you for asking." Bill, now yelling: Excuse me. I can see that you're friends and all, but your employee has been absolutely disgusting to me, and I want my gas pumped for free." Employee: "Sir, I'm sorry. She's not an employee. She's a customer." "No, she's not. She offered to help me in the aisle back there." "Sir, that was probably just her practicing common courtesy." Me: "Is your chip reader working or should I swipe?" Bill: "I want your manager now." Employee: "Sir, I'm the only person here right now. The manager will be here at 10 a.m. I'm standing there holding the card and waiting for this dude to back off and grab a little tube of donuts from the counter for my troubles, then place it down since I hadn't paid yet. Bill then huffs and storms out, gets into a 4x4 with wheels as tall as me, and very aggressively drives away as Hotel California blares from the speakers. I could hear it from inside the store. Employee: "The chip reader works. Go ahead. The total is $11.24. I left and found my dad, handed him the bag, and told him my tale. We leave. On the way home, we passed Bill's truck. I don't think he saw us. I hope he didn't. We were in a Prius. 4x4 versus Prius never goes well for the Prius." Religious customers demand I pray with them before they eat and complain when I decline. Many moons ago, I waitressed at a restaurant near several churches. This was way before lockdown. My first table one day was fresh from church. They were about to pray when I walked up. Seeing this, I stepped back to let them finish. The wife, who I'll call Karen, waves me towards the table. I hold up a hand, indicating no thanks. This happened often. Most of the time, they just went about their business. Karen: "We're going to pray. Join us." I suppose this is where I should say I don't do the religion thing. I don't mind if they do it around me, but I'm not comfortable joining in. Me: "No thank you. I'll come back when you're done." I go to leave. Karen: "It's okay. We won't tell your boss." She laughs. Me: "Boss? No, I'm just very busy. I'll go refill some drinks," and Karen interrupts me. "There is nothing more important than God." Me: "Okay, I'll be back." Karen: "I'm asking you to pray with my family. Are you really rejecting this one-of-a-kind offer?" Me, thinking, what? "Thank you, but I have to politely decline." Karen's husband, I'll call him Jerk: "Excuse me, what did you say?" Me: "I am not comfortable doing that, so I'm declining your offer. That is not to say you cannot do it yourselves. Please take your time. I'll go refill some drinks and be back. No rush." Jerk, loudly: "I want the manager. I don't want you waiting on us either." I said okay and walked away quickly. I found the manager and explained the situation. The manager goes to the table and tells them it is not required for servers to pray with customers and he would not force me to do it. If they wanted another server, they could have one. Jerk: "You're just as bad as she is. All of you here working instead of going to church like you should be. It's a shame. It's disgusting." Manager: "Sir, which would you rather have? The rest of us sitting beside you in a pew, or here, serving you iced tea and fried chicken steak? We can only do one." Jerk sputters: "Well, it's not up to me." Manager: "A new server will be with you momentarily." Karen: "What about her?" She points to me. My manager walks away from the table without reply. They get up and huff out. Next Sunday, guess who was right back there again and in my section? Karen: "We asked for you today because we're going to pray for you while you work." I ignore the comment and take their drink order. I can hear them praying loudly, something about helping me find my way to Christ. The meal goes fine, no issues, but when they leave, I see they left me a big fat 0 in terms of tip. Instead, they left me literature on their church. Next weekend, they request me again. I talked to the server next to me and swapped tables because I wouldn't serve them again. They stopped me when I was walking by and questioned why I wasn't waiting on them when they had asked for me specifically. Me: "I figured after all the problems last time I waited on you, you'd for sure want another server." Karen: "Problems?" They all look confused. Me: "Yeah, I figured since you didn't tip me, I did something wrong. I wouldn't want to do that to you again." insert sarcasm here. Then I turned and walked away. Jerk husband was saying something to me and I totally ignored him. That was the last time I saw them. I think I offended them enough that they refused to come back. Thank their God. Has anyone ever treated you differently because you weren't the same religion as them? Please let us know.
I look down on anyone who's not a member of the Church of Karen. All hail the Ree.
Entitled mom gets banned from the theme park for a huge tantrum. Hi everyone. I've been dying to post this story from my time working at a theme park forever now, and I finally have enough karma to do so. Hope you guys enjoy. A little backstory. I worked at a theme park on the events team. We have events around seasonal periods, and they're always themed. At almost every event, we have a competition build, a scavenger hunt, and other things for kids to do while they're in the park besides rides. This particular event was in January of 2018, and I was working the competition build. The way our competition build works is these kids get a Lego base plate to build everything on. The two rules we have is that nothing can hang off the edge of the base plate and the build can't be taller than a foot. This is what our entitled mom uses as her leverage. I had just returned from lunch and I saw that somebody had built an amazing build. It was a dragon that had a moving tail, arms, and a head. It had lots of detail and followed the theme. It was definitely going to win. We were only open for about another hour and we didn't think anybody else could build something good enough in that time frame. Enter our entitled mom. She had two small kids who started building at our competition. Like we normally do, we were talking to the kids and the mom trying to give them a great experience. The dad jokingly said to us, "You know when you see builds like that, the dragon, it's like why even try? But hey, if the kids are having fun, so be it." Entitled mom finally sees the dragon build.
Oh, wow. He must have brought pieces from home.
Me. Actually, he used all the pieces we have on the table. Entitled mom then proceeded to look at the dragon very intensely. When I see her reaching out to touch it, I stop her. Me. Please don't touch other people's builds, ma'am. We don't want them to break.
I'm not touching, just looking.
I keep watching her just to make sure she doesn't do anything else, but she then pulls out her phone and takes pictures of the entire build. After taking the pictures, she walks over to her sons. Entitled mom.
Don't worry, boys. That build is disqualified anyways. Its pieces hang over the edge.
The piece she's referring to is the moving tail. When you fold the tail, it didn't hang over the edge, but when you unfolded it, it would hang over the edge. When she took her pictures, she unfolded the tail. My coworker folded the tail back up and moved the dragon build to the back of the table so she couldn't reach it. After a few minutes, entitled mom comes over to us and demands we find the pieces that the kid used when he built the dragon. Our Lego pieces that we use for competition builds are a mix of hundreds of Lego kits. There is absolutely no guarantee of any type of pieces. The piece she was referring to looked like an elephant tusk. Entitled mom.
Find my babies these pieces now. They need them.
Me. I will try my best, ma'am, but those small pieces normally fall to the bottom of our bins, and there's no guarantee we have any more.
I don't care. Find them. We want to use them.
Me and my coworker spent the next few minutes digging through these large gray tote bins filled with thousands of Lego pieces just to try and find a tiny piece that is smaller than a pencil eraser. We found some pretty cool pieces that we tried to give to the kids. Me. Hey guys, we couldn't find the pieces you wanted, but we found these super cool ones. Do you want to use these? Entitled Kid 1.
No, we want the ones that are on the dragon.
Entitled Kid 2.
Yeah, it's not fair he brought his own pieces from home.
Entitled Mom.
You're making my babies upset. Since we can't use the pieces we brought from home, can we use the pieces from inside?
We were outside a building that had more Legos inside. Now, the pieces that were inside were thick, dirty bricks, no specialty pieces. Plus, they didn't belong to my department. Me. Sorry, ma'am. Those pieces don't belong to the events team. We can't use those. Plus, none of those bricks are the type of pieces you would want either.
This is so unfair. My babies aren't gonna win, and it's all your fault.
After this, I kind of shut down. I walked away to talk to some other kids who weren't little brats. We had about 15 minutes before we were going to close the competition. During this time, my boss came to help us start closing. When she arrived, I let her know about our entitled mom. Now, I love my boss. I have worked with her for a very long time. She's the main reason why I haven't quit yet. My boss had an issue with entitled parents, especially parents that put other kids down to bring their kid up. After I let my boss know that she had been touching the dragon build, she stood in front of the table and blocked the dragon build. Again, entitled mom decided to try and touch the build. Boss. Please don't touch other people's builds. Entitled Mom. I'm not. I'm just looking. Did you know this build is disqualified? Boss. Even if it was, we don't like to tell kids that their build was disqualified and break their hearts. Entitled Mom did not like this. She went back to taking pictures, but not of the build. But she started taking pictures of us. My boss, being very sarcastic, told her to make sure she gets her good side. Me and my coworker jokingly posed while she took pictures of us. The time hit for us to close, and instead of Entitled Mom leaving like the other families did, she sat there and watched us. When do they come out and judge them? Boss. You will be notified by email only if you win. Normally when we close, we put away all the Legos and take apart all the builds on the table after selecting a winner. Since Entitled Mom wanted to sit there and watch us, we had to carry this giant table with all the builds on it inside the building and into an employee-only room just so we can take them apart. We kept going outside to continue cleaning up, and Entitled Mom kept watching us. She followed us around and videotaped everything. I assume her husband went somewhere with her kids because they were gone. After we moved everything inside, we took pictures of the dragon and of her brat's builds. My boss called security and let them know about her stalking us. She also contacted guest services and let them know of her behavior so that she couldn't go up there and get free stuff. While we were taking apart the builds, guest services radioed us. They already knew the lady we were talking about by name. They said she had caused several issues in the park in the years prior. She was an annual pass holder, and her behavior today put more points against her annual pass, and she was a half a point away from being banned. After all the builds were taken apart, we decided to pull the dragon registration form as the winner. My boss looked at the slip and laughed. Boss, the builder of the dragon has already won a competition build, so he can't win again. The sad thing is, Entitled Mom's kids built some really cute stuff, and had Entitled Mom not acted the way she did, her kids would have won. As of now, 2021, I no longer work at this theme park, but the Entitled Mom has been permanently banned due to her behavior. Speaking of theme parks, what's your favorite theme park in the whole world? Please let us know. I'd do anything to go to Disneyland right now. Am I the jerk for lashing out after my husband ruined the food I prepared for our guests? Me, female 26, and my husband, male 33, Mike, have been married for a year now. He doesn't cook. He's bad at it. His cooking is worse, despite learning from books, YouTube videos, me teaching him. It just never works. Every time he steps a foot into the kitchen, it turns into a mess. I don't know how. He doesn't know how. Maybe because he's constantly busy with work, police officer, and is used to fast food. But he's good at other things, so we agreed that I handle cooking, he handles chores. Everything was going well. However, recently, he's been getting involved in my cooking. Basically making comments about what ingredients I should not add, and I try to take it under consideration, but only if he's being reasonable. Lately, he's been waiting for when I prepare dinner or lunch, then sneaks in and adds extra salt, pepper, or spices or other ingredients that completely ruin the meal. First, it was a mystery to me, had me questioning myself, why I added too much salt or spices. He admitted he was the one adding extra ingredients and messing up my cooking. The meals are no longer eatable. I've told him to not try to get involved in something he doesn't have experience with. I've basically been eating out for a week now because of him. Last night, we had my family visiting. I took the entire day preparing meals. He helped out by going to the grocery stores. I noticed he bought stuff from the grocery store that I wasn't allowed to see. I figure probably some snacks. As we were about to eat dinner, my mom and dad suddenly looked grossed out and said they couldn't eat because the food had too much salt in it. I was confused and I asked them to try another dish which was too spicy for them to eat. My dad had an upset stomach and he almost threw up. He has high blood pressure and salt isn't good for him. Mike kept acting confused. My mom and dad couldn't eat anything I made. I knew Mike had done something with it. My parents left and I felt ashamed. I asked Mike, then I blew up after he admitted he went behind my back to add ingredients that he thought were going to make my food better. I lashed out at him, told him he ruined my work after spending hours and made my parents feel uncomfortable, adding too much salt, knowing my dad has high blood pressure. He argued that he was just trying to help and thought the food would be better, so I shouldn't yell at him. And my parents didn't say anything, so it wasn't that bad. I told him he shouldn't have done this, but he refused to acknowledge he did anything wrong, then went out to meet his friends for dinner. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Sometimes we need to focus on our strengths. For people like Mike, that means stay out of the kitchen. Company requires using our airline miles for work trips. Another fun story of an obnoxious boss. As I've mentioned in other posts, I used to travel a lot for business, between 30 and 35 weeks a year. Our boss was a frequent traveler as well, and taught us the tricks of the trade for accumulating frequent flyer miles, and especially status, a really great perk. Eventually, he retired and sold the company to New Boss. New Boss overheard that I had over 500,000 frequent flyer miles with my airline, not credit card points, and said he should implement a new policy that we had to use our personal frequent flyer miles for our business travel since the company had paid for our trips. That weekend, my wife and I sat down and booked weekend trips all over the country over the next year. Boston for clam chowder? Check. New York City for a Broadway show? Check. Garlic Fest in Gilroy, California? A real and delicious thing, by the way. Check. By Monday morning, my airline frequent flyer miles account was down to about 15,000 miles. Later that week, it was time to book a trip, and he said I had to use frequent flyer miles. I brought up my account and showed him I didn't have enough miles. He asked where they went, and when I said I had booked some trips, he demanded I redeposit the miles. I pointed out there was a $150 charge per person and that since it wasn't policy, I wasn't going to pay it. Upset, he announced going forward we needed approval for personal use of our personal frequent flyer miles. Okay, boss, you bet. My next step was to spread my flights over any and every airline I could find to prevent accumulating the 20,000 miles required to redeem a free ticket. I was on United, Frontier, American, Delta, Northwest, Continental, US Air, Southwest, etc. At one point, I think I booked a trip on the Mrs. Grace L. Ferguson Airline and Storm Door Company. He eventually figured out what I was up to, and he lost what little patience remained for me. Then the following, paraphrased, took place. Boss, I suppose you think you're a smart guy. Me, no, I know I'm a smart guy. Boss, don't get cute. Me, no, I'm smart. Cute is just a bonus. Look, I see my wife about 10 days a month. I live out of a suitcase. I know the aircraft evacuation speech by heart. Most of my meals are handed to me through a window. And thanks to my willingness to do this, you make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Can you please just let me keep the only perk I get from all this? Boss thought about it for a bit, grunted, fine, keep your miles, and walked away. Edited to clarify that these were airline frequent flyer miles, not credit card points. Sorry about the confusion. The day a tour group of 50 people dropped in unannounced. Seems it was the tour guide that truly messed up, but the guests were the ones literally crying. It was bizarre. So back in the days, I worked in a small bar somewhere in Europe. I would always man the bar and kitchen solo as the place was basically dead. Around 4 people during the day, 10 to 15 at night, and the menu basically existed out of 3 sandwiches and french fries in case you got the drunk munchies. This specific day, I had 3 regulars at the bar and was chatting away while serving them some coffee when I saw a crowd, around 50 people, stop in front of the bar and a guy pointing to the door. Uh-oh, it was 1 p.m., so high chances they were expecting food. I could manage a bar of 50 people easily with drinks, but combined with food? No way. I excused myself to my guests and dashed into the kitchen while calling my boss that they either had to come in right now to help me or I would send them away if they expected food. Seeing dollar signs to pay the many outstanding bills, the place was going under. My boss told me he'd come right away while I started greeting the crowd. After they were seated, literally piled on top of one another as we didn't have enough seating space, I pulled aside the tour guide and asked if they were here for just a drink. Nope. Drinks, full menu, and everyone would pay separately. Oh dear Lord. I informed him that I was alone and I had support on the way, but to please inform everyone that they should be patient as we are not a fancy restaurant or anything and only had a small fryer, but we would try to make the best of it. I started going around asking for drink orders, and people were already starting to scream to me that they wanted food now and giving me food orders while I was trying to manage a 50-person hungry crowd solo. I almost ripped my own teeth out in frustration right at that second, but kept on smiling. Luckily, then my boss came running in and started running the kitchen like a pro, and we managed to get out for 50 people with zero prep within 30 minutes. I had written down where people were sitting and gave them their orders according to the chart I made. Honestly, it was chaos, but I tried and ran as hard as I could while still smiling. Apparently, a table who had screamed their order at me while I was taking other people's drinks got their food not as first, but when I came out during my 3rd food plate run, they literally started crying. I was so shocked. The entire crowd was American, and every single time I meet an American nowadays, my mind goes back to that moment. Also, not a single person left a tip while I was working below minimum wage. Guess they thought tips are non-existent in every single European country. I get the service was not perfect, but no one can be blind enough to see this kind of situation for what it is, right? In the end, my boss fought the tour guide for being a jerk, and that was nice though. If you're with any group above 10 people, don't drop into a place and expect everything to be perfect. At the very least, give a few hours heads up. We wouldn't pay for your towing even if you weren't a jerk. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and for the last 3 days, it's been snow, rain, slop, etc. An accumulation of at least a foot of snow. It's caused power outages, caused people to be stranded, and we have a full house for the first time in almost a year. Housekeepers were here until 9:30 last night because we only had 2 available. Because of lockdown, we had to cut staff, and HK couldn't make it into work, etc. So crazy day, parking lot is full. We share a parking lot with a school next door. Keep in mind, we are only a 78-room hotel. We have the front lot, plus a back lot. Part of those lots are currently occupied by snow. Part by some construction containers for a remodel we would have started last year. Either way, still can almost accommodate a full house. There is a fence along the border between us and the private daycare school, and there are big signs in the 10 spaces that say, "Do not park here, you will be towed." Now, barring that, there are 3 office buildings with huge parking lots they never use, all of directly across the street. Many of those spaces are literally closer than some of the parking spaces to our front door. But either way, totally empty at night, and they don't tow. The school tows. They need those spaces for their workers, and they are entitled to them because, it's their property. Our hotel position is, do not park there, you can be towed. The people who have parked there and gotten towed who have complained to us are always met with, "Why did you park there? It says you can be towed." Now, that is your setting. So the quick story is that a guy comes in at 3 a.m. I cheerily greet him, and he starts laying into me saying he had to park in the school spaces and asks if he would be towed. I of course tell him, yes, you can. You shouldn't do that. "Well, if I get towed, you guys are paying for it." Dumb move. Has that ever worked in the history of forever? No. It just makes you sound like a cheap, whiny jerk. And now you've upset the person who you want help from. I of course said, "No, we won't." "But there are no other spaces in your lot, front or back," he complains. To which I then say that the parking lot across the street is empty and they do not tow. Which, to someone who isn't a jerk, would think, "Oh, cool, I should take 10 minutes and move my car so I don't end up getting towed." If that were the case though, then you wouldn't be reading this post. No, his response was he was not going to park across the street and that he shouldn't have to park anywhere except in our lot because he spends money here, blah blah blah. I just tell him that everyone here is in the same boat, there's other options that he doesn't want to take. Now, I guess this person had to sleep during the day and go to his work, not sure of the nature of it, at night. So, a day sleeper. And because he just lost the parking argument, he starts complaining about the noise of people nearby him last evening being noisy and he couldn't sleep. These would be people who are checking in and out during the daytime and aren't day sleepers and have every right to move around and talk and whatever. At least until our quiet time, from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. I ask, as he's just walking to his room, "Did you tell anyone?" "I was trying to sleep." Meaning no. Well, we can't do anything about something we don't know about, so that's on him as well. Hope he gets the jerk tax of getting towed tomorrow for not just taking the time to ask nicely where he can park or taking the time to move his vehicle, because we certainly are not paying for this jerk's tow bill. Edit. GM relieved me at 7, has my back, agreed with everything said and done. Am I the jerk for not selling my designer clothes to pitch in for my sister's medical treatment when she won't sell her hobby items either? I've always enjoyed having nice clothes. I don't get obsessive about things that must be X label, but if I have the money to splurge on a classic dress from a reputable designer, I'll buy it. My sister is more into collecting hobby items, like video games, comic books, paperbacks, etc. She has a lot of those little Funko Pops, etc. I love her apartment. It's filled with so many things it's like a flea market of geekdom. 8 months ago, she had a medical issue that required a lot of extra attention and work. We all banded together to support her, but she ended up racking up a lot of medical debt, and much worse, also didn't make it. She's slowly recovering, but will need more care. 4 weeks ago, she let me know that she'll be able to handle her medical debt slowly over time, but said that she was hoping I could help. I told her that I'd definitely help. Then she said that her idea was that we could host a fire sale of my designer clothes and other things and probably cut down a huge chunk of the debt. I didn't realize she was being serious, but she was. There are a few things that are in the queue to be resold to make room for new items anyway, and I had already planned to split some of that money 70-30 between new items and giving them to her. I'm usually good at estimating what I can get for my clothes, and I was going to have around $7,000 to give. She was hurt and told me that she's my sister, they're just clothes. I asked her then, is she doing the same thing with her figurines and stuffed toys, comic books, etc.? She then got on my case about how she's sick, she's feeling bad, and I'm expecting her to part with the things that make her happy. I told her that no, I don't expect her to, but she can't expect me to just sell all my clothes either. She argued that I have more than enough and that I spent thousands of dollars a year, which is true, but not in the way she thinks. I'd maybe start with a $5,000 new money cap, but end up selling $9,000 worth of items, so the amount is closer to $14,000. Anyway, moving on. She got our mom and dad and brother involved, and they're all pushing me to contribute more, saying that I definitely don't need new clothes. I'm not arguing that I do, and like I said, I was planning on giving her money anyway, but she's not even willing to put up her own items into this, and to me, that sends a bad message. I feel for my sister, but if she isn't even willing to help herself in this situation, I don't think I'm wrong to not dump all of my clothes for her. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. I dare you to try to get me to sell my Live Laugh Love shirt. Boss demands a strict dress code. I'm a teacher, been teaching for close to 15 years. The first school I taught at was horrible. I loved my students, but the principal was horrible. It should have been a red flag that I was hired after her first year at the school and she had like 30 plus spots to fill out of 110 staff. A ton of people jumped ship because of how bad she was. Not going to lie, the school was tough. We had trouble with gangs, fights, pregnancies, and it was just a school for 7th and 8th grade. There were some kids that were harder to reach because they were reacting to things the only way they knew how. We also had some amazingly awesome kids. I would have easily still been there today 14 years later if it wasn't for that principal. I should also say that I'm a white woman. The school had 1,100 kids in it. Out of the 1,100, there were only 11 white students. Out of the 110 staff, there were maybe 10 white staff members. Most of the kids were Hispanic or African American. Majority of the staff were African American as well, including the principal. I was some of the kids' first exposure to a white person. So the principal, who was a bully to students, staff, and parents, systematically took away everything that was positive from the kids in school. The kids had to be in uniforms, but on Fridays they could wear jeans with their uniform shirt. She did away with that. She took away pep rallies. She took away field day. She once told us to be quieter while cheering for our kids at a soccer game. The 8th graders would get a dance at the end of the year. She took that away. A group of my girls wrote a letter asking her why did she take the dance away from everyone, even the kids who don't get into trouble and follow the rules, and why not just tell the kids who got into trouble that they can't come? They were too scared to ask her in person and too scared to give her the letter themselves. They asked me to give her the letter. When I tried, she refused to take it from me, saying, "If they have something to say to me, they can give it to me themselves." One year, Halloween fell on a Friday. At the beginning of the month, when we had our staff meeting, she made it very clear that we were not allowed to wear a costume of any kind. Throughout the month, she sent multiple emails reminding us that costumes were not allowed. I show up that Friday in a dress that has giant flower print all over it. I don't normally wear dresses. I'd gone to a hobby store and gotten 2 giant fake flowers and made them into earrings. I also got a giant red beehive wig. Voila! Mrs. Frizzle from the Magic School Bus. I'm a science teacher. She calls me into her office. This is pretty much our conversation. Her. Miss X, were you at the faculty meeting and blah dates? She has the sign-in sheet sitting in front of her, so she knows I was there. Me. Yes. Her. Did you see my emails about no costumes? Me. I did. Did you understand the emails where I said no costumes? I did. Why are you wearing a costume? I'm not. I can tell by this point she is incredibly angry. She gestures towards me. And what is that? A dress, not a costume. What is on your head? I feign ignorance and touch my head. Oh, this? Are we not allowed to wear wigs? Are you going to tell the staff? She herself was wearing a wig that day that I'd heard her brag about. Oh, she was upset, but couldn't do a darn thing. All she did was tell me to get out of her office. $127 dine-in dash. So I'm a server, and one of my tables walked out. This is going to be long, but please read. I need advice. Background. The servers are supposed to pay for walkouts when they happen where I work. I've had to pay for things in the past because I messed up, and I admit they were my fault. I've worked there for 2 years now, so I'm well aware of the rule. Story time. It's getting close to the end of the night, and I had to use the bathroom. Had to go number 2, which means I was going to be gone for a little. I say to 2 of my fellow servers, I have to use the bathroom. Can you guys please watch table F1? And they say okay. So I go to the bathroom and come back a little bit later. The assistant manager let me know I had a table. Another server got the table's drink order for me, so I'm just waiting as the assistant manager makes the drinks, and my general manager comes up to me and says F1 haven't been paid for. I notice the 2 people from the table are gone. Before I went to the bathroom, the table asked for their check, so I go to see if they left the money, but it was empty. Me. There's no money. GM. Well, you have to pay for it. Me. I don't think I should have to pay for this because I asked 2 other servers to watch my table. GM. You signed the paper, so you have to pay. You know the rules. Me. I'm sorry, but I'm not paying for it. This wasn't my fault. I walk away so I can continue to take care of my other table. Then maybe 15 minutes later, I pull my assistant manager to the side. Me. Look, I follow the rules. You guys, my managers, have always said if you step out, let someone know so they can watch your table, and that's exactly what I did. So I'm not paying for it. Assistant manager. Well, that's not fair to everyone else, and you signed the paper. Me. GM said that too, and I don't know what paper you're talking about. Assistant manager. The paper that says you have to pay for walkouts regardless of the reason. It was passed out a while ago. Me. I never signed that because I was never given one. Well, it has to be paid for. It was your table at the end of the day. It's your responsibility. Me. I was having a human bodily function. How can I be held responsible when I let others know? Well, you didn't tell me. But we can't put you on the schedule until it's paid for. Me. Well, this might be the last time we work together because I'm not paying for it. In the end, my GM gave me a speech about how I've been working there for 2 years and that I'm a good employee and I should get more trustworthy people to watch my tables. Secretly, he took some of the money off the order and told me not to tell the other servers, but I still have to pay $100 overtime like a payment plan. I just want to know if I was in the wrong for not wanting to pay it. Obviously, the other 2 servers could have been held accountable as well, but I didn't want to have my coworkers hate me. At this point, I'm just going to pay it off and work until I find a new job, because this place is far from perfect, but this whole thing has completely upset me. Psycho Karen gets kicked out of our hotel. Good evening, class. I hope we're all ready for today's lesson. Today, we're going to learn how to get kicked out of a hotel. Now, for the 2 big jerks in this lesson, we will call them Karen and Kelly, because these are some of the most entitled jerks I think I've ever met. It all started when I came into my normal work shift. It was a normal start to my shift. Manager gut punching me, and my GM asking why we hit each other. I mean, why not? When my manager left, something minor happened that needed a detailed note. While doing that, Karen came into the building. Karen. My key isn't working, and that jerk from this morning made it worse. Oh my, I thought to myself. Me. Oh, I'm sorry for that, ma'am. I can remake that for you. I just need an ID, and I don't have an ID. It's in my room, and I'm locked out of my room. This is BS. Do your job better. She turned around and went down the hall. She was staying on the bottom floor, and as she was walking, she yelled at me. Forget you. Oh my, lovely. I heard her knocking on her room door. Her sister Kelly was in there. So I go to the back and text both of my managers about what happened. They said if Karen comes back and is doing the same thing, put my foot down and tell her not to talk to me like that or she will be removed. Cool, simple, love it, awesomeness. Karen comes back. She exits her room, slams, and I mean slams that door, and comes in the lobby screaming. Me. Ma'am, do not talk to me like that. If you continue, you will be removed from the hotel. Karen. I am talking to you however I want to talk to you. I am the customer. Me. Do not talk to me like that at all. Now please hand me your ID so I can remake your keys for you. No, you're going to listen to me, and I'm going to tell you how to do your job because I was a manager at a hotel. Me. Do not talk to me like that again. If you do it one more time, you will be removed from the hotel. This is your last warning. Karen. You are being mean to me. Make my keys now. Me. Ma'am, Karen.
No, no, no. Shut up. I am talking, you hear me? Do not interrupt me.
I'm really holding my tongue now. Karen.
That is what I thought. This is why my keys don't work. The jerk this morning didn't remake both of my keys at the same time. So explain to me, since this one isn't working now, but the other one does.
Me. So that key in your hand was working the whole time since my coworker remade it? Karen.
You're not going to apologize to me?
I was done being nice. Me. I'm not apologizing to you at all. I didn't do anything to you at all. You literally came in here screaming and cussing at me over your key. Give me your ID, give me the keys, so you can go to your room and leave me alone.
No. Apologize to me now. You hear me?
Me. ID, please.
Stop interrupting me.
ID.
No. Listen to me.
I will listen once you give me your ID. She gives me the ID. I make her keys. I give her the keys. I'm ignoring her now. Karen.
Your parents didn't raise you right. Who talks to a customer how you do? You're a poor excuse of a person.
I turn to walk off to text my managers. Karen.
Wow, really? You interrupted me and everything? Now you're ignoring me? I am trying to say sorry to you.
Worst apology ever. She kept yelling at me from the front desk. I was texting my managers about everything. It got to the point I turned the corner and said, "Go to your room now. I'm not talking to you at all." Karen gets angry and starts cussing and yelling more and goes to her room and slams the door. GM calls me. Me. Meow Hotel, how can I help you? GM. Transfer me to that room now. Me. Okie dokie. Not sure what happened after that, but my manager called me next. Manager. What exactly did you say to that woman? Me. I told her to stop talking to me how she is. Told her if she doesn't stop, she will be removed from the hotel. I kept asking for ID, and she kept screaming like a 5-year-old. Manager. You said nothing inappropriate to her? Me. No. Why? Manager. She said she recorded you and that she has evidence of you getting violent and saying inappropriate things to her. Dumbfounded, I tried really hard not to giggle. Me. She just dug her own grave. Manager. Yeah, it sounds like it. Transfer me to the room. I transferred. 10 minutes later, I get a call from our customer service complaint line. Kelly in the room called them. The woman who was dealing with the case said, she said you attacked her sister over the counter and said very inappropriate things to her. I told the lady to give me a case management number and pass it on to the managers. This is in their hands now. I texted it to them and told them what the case woman said. GM calls me back and said, I want them out now. Heck no, I am pulling up the security cameras. I transferred her to the room. Manager called me next and was ranting about how she should have kicked out that woman earlier this morning. This wasn't the first issue with her, I guess. GM calls me back and said they have 15 minutes to get out. She told them about the cameras. She said Karen started yelling and cussing at her, and sometimes was just screaming, which I could hear down the hallway. GM told them if they come to the desk to talk to me, GM was currently watching the cameras, watching them leave. She told them if they come to the desk to talk to me, she would be calling police for harassment and disturbance of the peace, and she will throw trespassing on top of it, because GM and manager told them leave multiple times each. They went out the back doors, never stopped by the desk. Kelly and Karen quietly left, and I sat in the back room singing show tunes and doing homework. Was I upset over her yelling and screaming at me? Oh yeah, big time. When you yell and scream at me like she did, I started violently shaking. I was violently shaking and in the employee's bathroom trying not to throw up because, Moral of this story, don't be a jerk and don't do drugs. I don't know if drugs were involved, just don't do them though. I love you all get an A+. Speaking of hotels, what's the worst hotel you've ever stayed at? Please let us know.
Probably the time I stayed at the Hilton. The room didn't even have a jacuzzi.
Am I the jerk for banning my former mother-in-law from my house? My former mother-in-law is 52 years old, and I am 32 years old. Back when I was 23, I married. I got my then-girlfriend pregnant. We married soon after, and she gave birth to our daughter. 2 years after, my wife got extremely sick and passed soon after, leaving me with our daughter. I decided to move several states away back to my own parents, as I work a lot, and my parents volunteered to help me with my daughter. This went on for a while until I made a good promotion and had enough money saved up to get my own house half an hour away from my parents. And since then, watching my daughter during the day while I am at work is split between the nanny I hired and my parents. Before you think I'm taking advantage, my parents insist on watching her. My daughter is 8 now, in case you wonder, and I generally work 8 to 6. My former mother-in-law decided to move to the town I live because she wants to be close to her granddaughter/my daughter. I initially had no issue with this. After all, my wife was her only child, and my daughter her only grandchild. I only started having an issue when she actually moved. Since she moved here, she was at my house pretty much all day, including when I got home after work and the weekends. She would even be there when my daughter was at school and no one was home to clean. After having multiple conversations and arguments with her where I stated I was of the opinion her behavior was inappropriate and she was crossing boundaries, she finally toned it down for a while. However, slip-ups were and are common. Last week was the last straw for me. Since the past year and a half, I have started dating again and met a woman. However, due to lockdown, we have not been able to spend much time together. With everything opening up here, I invited her over after asking my parents to watch my daughter. When we were fooling around on the couch, my ex-mother-in-law let herself in and, of course, without calling, knocking, or asking, and proceeded to lose her crap and accused me of cheating and disrespecting my deceased wife. I finally had enough. I went over, snatched my key from her, forced her out of my home, and told her she is no longer welcome in my house. She really has no one else, and several people, including my parents, have weighed in, asking me to change my mind. I am not sure if I am the jerk here. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is his mother-in-law? Please let us know. Oh, I can't wait to see what our audience thinks of this one. Converted from salary to hourly. Best decision ever. I worked for a mid-sized fashion company with around 150 retail stores nationwide as a maintenance and safety coordinator. 4 months into the job, my manager quit and I picked up everything and was doing fine on my own for years, and I was the only person in charge of maintaining the stores and the alarm systems in all the stores. I did get a pay bump, but not a promotion in title. I put my contact number on every store's emergency contact list just in case the primary contacts, usually the store managers, don't pick up their phones in case of emergencies. And the store managers almost always refuse to pick up calls during off hours, so my phone would ring at least 2 to 3 times every night. 99% of the times are false alarm, usually caused by window brake sensors getting tripped by vibration from a big truck passing by, or a leaf hitting the window. I hated it, but had to do it because if no one on the emergency contact list picks up the phone, the alarm company automatically calls the police for dispatch, and there are penalties for false alarms, ranging from $50 to $200 per incident after 2 to 3 freebies, varies by location. In 2017, Department of Labor passed a law requiring all employees making under a certain amount of money to be converted to hourly so they can earn overtime. My salary was $800 short of making the cut. I brought it up with HR, stating that an hourly schedule would actually interfere with my duties, and an $800 raise in pay would make everything easier. And HR simply said, "Well, that's too bad, and we can't do anything about it at the moment." Well, okay. After that conversation, I put my phone on mute and stopped caring about anything outside of my 9 to 5. In hindsight, life was actually so much easier and better that way, and I'm not sure why I even wanted to stay on salary. Months go by without any serious issues except for the penalties for false alarms starting to pile up. One day, accounting and operations brought me into the office asking what those costs were. I told them what they were, and operations sent out a memo reminding all store managers that safety is of critical importance and they have to pick up calls from alarm companies. No one bothered asking why there was a surge of these additional costs, and I didn't care enough to remind them that it was because of me. Few more months go by, and one morning I woke up to almost 20 missed calls on my cell. Apparently, one of our Florida stores was broken into the night before at around 3 a.m. The store manager tried to get a hold of me because I was the one in charge of requesting/dispatching vendors for things like emergency board up. After an hour of trying to get a hold of me, she eventually started calling up everybody on the hierarchy for help, and I had 6 missed calls from the senior VP of operations alone. Eventually, the director of constructions was able to get a crew to board up the store, but that was almost 3 hours later and everyone was royally upset. Unsurprisingly, the second I stepped into the office, I was called into the office with all the senior management and HR and were asked why I was not there to take care of it. And I simply replied, because I already clocked out. The senior VP of operations was obviously not pleased with that answer and said it was my duty and I needed to be on standby at all times to handle these situations, even during off hours. To which I stated, "Oh, so I should be on call then. In that case, I'll have to work with accounting to get properly compensated for my on-call hours once we have a schedule established." The room went silent and nothing came out of the rather short meeting. Later that afternoon, HR called me into the office again, asking whether I'd like to become salaried again with a pay bump. I said I'll take the pay bump, but I'd rather stay hourly, and walked out. They didn't give me the pay bump. Edit. Sorry, I didn't provide what happened next, so here's some closure. I was put on call for a few weeks because it was summer at the time of the incident, and HVAC systems kept failing over the weekends in our Florida stores. And again, I was the one to dispatch vendors to fix them. Money was great during that period. Eventually, the director of construction was put on as the emergency contact for off-hour issues, and he absolutely hated it. I left the company last year. They had to scramble to get a replacement and hired a maintenance supervisor with an MBA in political science, but no related experience. My last contact from the company was the supervisor asking me what the login credentials were for all the 150 stores' alarm systems. I didn't reply. Am I the jerk for unintentionally insulting a friend's parenting? So this argument/discussion has come up more than a few times with my friends and family, but this time it really went insane. I'm a mother of a 2-year-old boy, and most of my friends/close family are the same age, early 30s or older, so most of us have kids. We have all been really open with one another, and we all know that most of us have different political and religious beliefs. It really is a big melting pot of a bunch of different backgrounds, so we try to just tread lightly. But we do debate on topics quite often, and we have always stayed cordial. Tonight, one friend, T, male 31, asked when we were going to put our son into daycare/preschool, as he is home with a nanny while I work from home and my husband works outside the house. We mentioned him going to a specific preschool that is pretty well known in our town after he turns 3. One of the moms, we will call her Jenny, piped up and said we should take him to X school, which in all fairness is highly rated, but extremely religious school. Think set prayer times, ancient building with scary stone things, Bible study, etc. I said thanks, but we won't be introducing son's name to religion until he is old enough and expresses the desire to learn on his own or if he wants to be religious. I did not think this would come as a shock to anyone. They all know we are agnostic. We have discussed it plenty of times. However, Jenny went completely hysterical and said she couldn't believe I would insult her that way, and in public as well. I asked her what she meant, and she said I was implying she was brainwashing her kids by sending them to religious schools. I tried to stay calm and just tried to explain that we have different beliefs. She very strongly believes her kids' souls are at risk if they are not baptized and or brought up in church. I told her every parent has the right to try to do what they believe is best for their kids, but she just wouldn't let it go and kept trying to convince me on why I was wrong and how she was a better mother because she was thinking about her kids' future. At this point, I had seriously lost my patience and told her maybe she should think long and hard about why she is so convinced I am saying she is brainwashing her kids when I said nothing of the sort and said, maybe you are projecting what you already think of yourself. And then I left with my husband. My husband thinks I was on point and that she deserved the comments after how crazy she got about a school choice, but the friends group itself is pretty much split down the middle. Half think I went too far and insulted her beliefs. The other half think she shouldn't have approached the subject knowing we weren't religious. I think I may be the jerk with how harsh my last comment was, and I know my temper was starting to stir up towards the end of it. But I also think you shouldn't ask for an opinion you don't really want. Wanting to get some unbiased feedback from both sides of the fences on this one. Update. Wow, this blew up overnight. I woke up to a text from Jenny that said, "Sorry about last night, please call me when you get the chance." I did and we talked. As I figured, this blow-up of hers wasn't even about me. Their oldest daughter is 9 and apparently went to a family birthday event where her oldest cousin, 11, male, told her she was dumb and just a little kid to still believe in God, and told her he was made up and called her names and I guess lots of other fun comments a kid bully would say. It all culminated in her daughter asking why she goes to church if her cousin X doesn't, and if she could stop so she wasn't a freak. Jenny and her husband apparently have been struggling with reaffirming their faith with her on listening to her request. This all happened a few days before last night, so apparently she was projecting quite a bit and went overboard. She apologized and was sincere, and I accepted. All is good now. She even asked my viewpoint, as my mom was Methodist but my dad agnostic, and how I grew up, and was able to share how they raised me to decide for myself what I believed. Overall, a good resolution to a crappy fight. Falsely accused me of cheating? Well, I'll ruin the curve. So this was back in high school, 10th grade, honors chemistry. First day of class, the teacher spelled out the rules and some info. 1. If you had an A going into the final exam, you did not have to take the final. The final was so tough, it was graded on a curve. 75 was the highest grade ever in 20 years. 3. So, if the highest grade was 75, then everyone would get plus 25 added to their score. 4. Also, if you were caught cheating, you received a 0 for that test and got in trouble with the dean. 5. Talking during a test was okay, as long as it was not sharing answers. Weird rule, I'll admit. No problem, I thought. I love chemistry. I'll have an A going into the final, and I will not have to take the dreaded final. It did sound scary, after all. Trouble started with the first exam. I finished. It was not that hard, and I was bored waiting for class to end. Being an immature 15-year-old, I whispered to the person next to me, "Look at this." I showed him my calculator, old days, which had numbers 7734, which upside down looked like heck. I said, "That's what this test was." A few days later, I got my test back. Cheating, 0. Please see me after class. Long story short, that heck joke was the reason. I took it to the spineless dean, who rescinded the 15 days of detention. I was allowed to talk after all, but did not remove the 0. The teacher even admitted at the disciplinary hearing that he knew I did not cheat. He said I had a 100 on that test, and no one else did. But too bad, rules are rules. So, the rest of that semester, I worked my butt off, and a week before the final, it was clear I would still fall 1 or 2 percentage points below an A. I'd have to take the terrible final exam, all because of my immature stupidity and that 0 for non-cheating. Now, I am all for rules, but I am also for common sense and fairness. Making me take that test was really about the teacher's ego, pride, and saving face. He admitted as much. He was actually still upset I did not get 15 days of detention for, by his admission, not cheating. I first talked to the principal. I offered to receive a B for the class and not take the final, because I knew it would help others with the better curve. I did not want an A with other students mad at me. Principal said too bad. Okay then. I then approached the teacher and said, "Look, you know I deserve an A." He nodded his head in agreement. "If you make me take the final, I will get at least 95% and I will kill the curve for anyone else." I was a bit crappy for sure, but I knew I could make it back up. He said, "Tough, and you won't get above 75, Mr. Smarty Pants. No one ever has." Challenge accepted and malicious compliance initiated. I studied as usual, and I told everyone else that there was not going to be a curve for the final, and don't blame me for what is going to happen to your grades. I am being forced to take this test. Before the final exam, some of the students who had to take their final pleaded with the teacher. They had no doubt in my abilities as a curve wrecker, but he was one stubborn jerk. No dice. I got a 98 on the final. Everyone got 2 points for the curve adjustments, which in the past would have been at least 25 points. Kids were upset, parents were upset, meetings full of shouting and swearing were held. Through it all, I made sure no one was mad at me. After all, I told everyone this was going to happen before it happened. The rest of the year, the principal, dean, and teacher were all upset with me for my stunt. Huh? They had to deal with a lot of irate parents, I guess. 15 years later, I found out that the 75 max score held up every year before and after me, except of course for my year. So in the end, about 100 innocent students were penalized so a teacher and administration could save face. I got my A and ended up class salutatorian. Edit. I did feel bad that some classmates became collateral damage in this drama, but I made sure they understood that there were 2 easy solutions. Just give me a B or let me out of the final requirement that the teacher and admin rejected. All the decision makers had a chance to avoid the outcome. After all, I was not going to purposely tank the final just to improve the curve. Have you ever had a teacher who was a real jerk? If so, what did they do? Please let us know. Oh, I still have nightmares about my kindergarten teacher. Am I the jerk for overreacting over a cake? I, 23, female, am living with my boyfriend, 27, male. I've definitely gained the lockdown 15. So for 2021, I decided to go on a little health journey to lose those couple extra pounds. My birthday came around the corner, and one of my friends made me this lovely lunchbox cake. It was a tiny Earl Grey cake, about 4 inches in diameter, with little heart-shaped strawberries and frosting frogs holding signs that said, "Happy Birthday." It made my little heart happy. I took it home and decided to eat the next day, as I was having digestive issues at the moment and I wanted to enjoy it on date night with my boyfriend. It was the perfect little add-on for a cheat day too. My boyfriend came home, saw the cake in the fridge, and asked if he could have a slice. I said no, and that I wanted to eat it the next day, and that he could have some the next day too. He made little comments here and there, sulked, and after I continuously said no, went into his room to play video games for the rest of the night. When I went downstairs this morning, the cake was gone, and there were dirty dishes in the sink with the little signs of happy birthday crumpled and soggy on top. The whole cake was eaten. Obviously, I knew that my boyfriend was the culprit. I confronted my boyfriend, and it didn't go well for a lack of better word. It basically boiled down to, "If you would have just let me have one slice, I wouldn't have eaten the whole thing without you." He said that this was his way of getting back at me for being so selfish and stingy. I tried rebutting and arguing that it was my birthday cake and I wanted to eat my own birthday cake. He still didn't understand why the cake was so important because my birthday was celebrated a week ago. He even joked that he was helping me out since I was on a diet anyway. I was getting upset, and of course, being the crybaby I am, I shed a few tears. He didn't really like that, so he started chastising me a bit more, calling me immature. So instead of staying home for our date night, I decided to stay at my friend's place. I told him that I was upset at him at the moment and that he was making me more upset with this conversation, so I was leaving for the night so we could both cool down. He's now saying that I'm a jerk for leaving and overreacting over cake. My friend said that I'm not overreacting at all and that I was in the right for being upset because it was my birthday cake. I'm really conflicted. I'm definitely upset about the situation, but after all, it was just cake. Maybe I shouldn't have started a fight and should have just let it go. Maybe I should have just stayed and talked it out for conflict resolution's sake. Am I the jerk for leaving and overreacting over a cake? I can't be hired directly? You don't get my system. So my backstory. When I was about 20-ish, I worked for a company named for a fruit that didn't sell fruit. Actually, I worked for a primary supplier for them who was doing the repair division in a new location. Cast. We've got myself. We've got supervisor. We've got lead. So I started in a smaller position and quickly moved up to repair evaluations. Basically, if the thing worked when we got it, but not after the repair, I need to find out why and correct it. Management had to manually search every device in an Excel sheet every day to find the devices I worked on. I took it on myself to design and implement an automatic system. Given I was a temp at the time, they extended my employment with the promise of direct hire due to this design. It worked flawlessly for close to 2 years. Right around the time I was due to figure out if I was being brought up or not, Lead starts playing around and avoiding the situation. I contact Lead multiple times a week for the next month with little to no reply. I spoke with Super after Lead started ignoring me and not replying. I was getting desperate at this time to know whether I need to look for new work soon or if I would have a great job for years to come. Finally, I had enough. I rebuilt the system I designed with a kill switch, so to speak, and hid it in the system. I emailed this new system to ask the managers, including Lead and Super. They all liked the new update and praised my ingenuity. I let them know that I was the only one who knew how to design and operate this, but would love to be brought up to permanent so I could train someone else if I were to take vacations or something of the like. This was ignored. Edit. In light of learning, I could be more specific. Here's an explanation of this kill switch. It's an Excel sheet that linked to another daily generated file from the repair division. I created the link and was/am Microsoft certified in Office. Don't know if it's still a thing. It was back then. Haven't needed to be certified in forever now. So I knew fun workarounds and tricks. My email is tied into the system, so it would automatically scrape the required info into another sheet, which was then parsed even more into other sheets. It's long and complex, but did exactly what was needed for the people who needed different sets of data. My email was tied into the design very specifically in specific places. The data emailed out, if you're familiar with Excel, doesn't usually include the formulas to reach what's shown in the boxes. I ensured it wasn't as the higher-ups like to copy-paste to their emails onwards. Easy for them, easy for me. Finally, my last week was here, and I reminded Lead and Super I haven't been moved to permanent status. I don't have a replacement for this position, to which I received the usual, "It's not that hard. We know the system and anyone could do it." So my last day, they have me start bundling out my last report and to close out my email and file system. The kill switch was the part that was wiped in the device reset before I was allowed to collect my last check. The wipe is to ensure I haven't linked my provided computer to an outside source, I guess. Never quite knew exactly why. They wiped my computer, took my badge, and ensured I wasn't sneaking any devices out and wished me well. Fast forward a few days, when Super calls me, asking why the file system isn't working after I left. I reminded him that it was built on my company-provided device, and I hadn't been allowed to teach anyone else the system before I left. The silence as the wheels clicked in place was like hearing heaven itself. He immediately hung up and called back, asking me to come back full-time with benefits immediately. I had already taken a new job, interviewed the day before, and accepted the position on the spot. The money was way better, and was to start the next week. I told Super his offer had to beat my new hourly rate and effective the next day or no dice. He never called me back, and from friends who still work there, that system had never been fixed, and nobody can figure it out enough to reverse engineer it. That was close to 12 years ago now. I'm pretty proud of myself. Am I the jerk for telling my close friend she shouldn't have another baby? I'm 25, female, and my friend Pam, 24, female, has a son, 2, male, who I love dearly. Pam and I have known each other since we were 15, and we had similar dreams. We are both in a group of friends that are tightly knit. Pat is on again and off again with her baby's dad, and they had an explosive argument, so she stayed at my place for the week. I was surprised during this stay because she didn't really watch her son. He was bumping his head on the walls, playing with the toilet, and playing on the stairs. I watched him, but when I had to go to class, I handed him to Pam, and most of the time, she had let him loose again so she could be on her phone or whatever. She mentioned she wanted to have another baby with her boyfriend, and she made it seem that because she had nothing else to do, she should give her son a sibling. She asked for my opinion, and when I asked her if she wanted my honest opinion, she said yes. I told her she shouldn't, because she still lives with her 85-year-old grandmother. She isn't financially stable, and her relationship with her boyfriend is rocky. I told her bringing another life to this world is a huge responsibility, and she mentioned a time last year when I tried getting her to go back to school when I tried giving her my study guides for anatomy and physiology during my undergrad days. I was confused why she brought that up, and she said that I act like I'm better than everyone. I only tried encouraging her to go back to school because she admitted she was jealous that everyone else in our group of friends were achieving their goals. I assured her I was not trying to put her down, and she said that I told my other friend that I wanted to have a baby with my fiance once I finished my master's degree and passed my boards. I was like, okay. I never applied any of that to her, but it's true. I wanted to have mental and financial stability before having kids. She started to cry and insisted on leaving. I tried to get her to stay and leave in the morning when the roads were clear, but she pushed me away and left. She's telling our friends that I'm a snobby jerk. I called her and texted her that I was sorry if my opinion hurt her, and my opinion was something she didn't even have to consider because she's an adult, and she just said that I'm a cold-hearted jerk. Am I the jerk here? I've tried to talk to her about the possibility that she is experiencing depression, but she tells me to mind my own business. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is Pam? Please let us know. Sometimes the truth hurts, baby mama. Entitled mom demands I shovel her driveway for free. I've been a fan of this sub for a while, so I'm excited to finally have a story to post. Background: my family moved to a New England town in March of 2020. I'm 18, but living with my parents due to my university doing remote learning right now. We don't know any of the neighbors super well because we of course haven't been socializing much since getting here. I do know one elderly man, who I'll call FN for friendly neighbor, pretty well. During the warmer months, when I was walking my dog, I'd often see friendly neighbor out on his porch and I'd stop to chat for a bit. He's super nice. The entitled mom, who I'll call EM, from this story lives across the street from me. We've never spoken before today. My town got a couple inches of snow yesterday, so this morning I went out to shovel the driveway. It occurred to me friendly neighbor might need help with snow shoveling given his old age, so I knocked on his door and asked if he'd like me to do any shoveling for him. He very gratefully accepted and even offered to pay me, though I let him know that wasn't necessary. I shoveled his driveway and also the walkway to his house. Friendly neighbor has a really short driveway and the snow was pretty light, so I was done in under 30 minutes. I got back to my house at a bit past 11 a.m. At 11:30 a.m., the doorbell rings. I put on a mask and open the door. Entitled mom is standing there, no mask. What ensues is one of the weirdest conversations I've had. To paraphrase, me. Hi, can I help you with anything? Entitled mom. Yes, I was just wondering what time you were going to be coming by. Me. Huh? Entitled mom. Coming by my house to shovel. My daughter is going to a birthday party at 2:30, so it definitely needs to be done before that. Me, somewhat confused. I wasn't going to shovel your driveway. Entitled mom in accusatory tone. I saw you shoveling friendly neighbor's driveway. Yeah, I mean, I can shovel your driveway for money. Entitled mom in a disgusted tone. You expect me to pay you? Do your parents pay you every time you do a chore? Me, after a moment of shocked silence. They provide me with food and shelter and pay my college tuition, and they're my parents. I don't know you. Okay, fine. How much did you charge friendly neighbor? I definitely am not letting you overcharge me. I didn't. You didn't charge him, but you are trying to charge me? I didn't charge him because I was simply doing him a favor. He can't shovel his driveway himself. I have 3 kids. How do you expect me to find the time to shovel my own driveway? That's not my problem. If you want me to shovel your driveway for you, it'll be $50. Honestly, if she had just knocked on my door and politely asked me to shovel her driveway, I would have agreed to do it for $10. But given how ridiculously rude and entitled she was being, I wasn't going to lift one darn finger to help her unless she was paying me a good amount. Well, when I named a price of $50, it completely set her off. $50? You expect me to pay you $50 to shovel one driveway? There's absolutely no way in heck I'm paying that. That's theft, and you should be ashamed of yourself. After her little temper tantrum, she looked at me like she was expecting me to apologize, but I just stared at her. So she decided to say one more thing. Oh, and by the way, that sissy mask makes you look like a jerk. Me. The price just went up to $100. If you call me another name, the price will be $200. Finally, she left. I was already planning to make a post in here about her insanely entitled behavior. Then at 1:30 p.m., she showed up at my house, banging on the door and yelling that her daughter was going to be late. My dad, who wasn't home when entitled mom came by in the morning, but who I had filled in on what had happened, yelled at her through the door that he was going to call the cops if she didn't get off our property. At around 2:40 p.m., I saw entitled mom's son, who I think is around 10 or so, shoveling their driveway. So it would seem entitled mom's daughter was late for that party. At around 4 p.m., the doorbell rang again, but this time it wasn't entitled mom, thank God. Instead, it was a plate of cookies from friendly neighbor along with a card thanking me for shoveling his driveway. At the bottom of the card said, P.S. I could hear entitled mom yelling at you. I'm sorry if your kindness to me prompted that. But don't worry, she hates everyone, and so far as I can tell, everyone returns the favor. Would you shovel Karen's snow if she asked you to? Please let us know. Come on, I know at least one of you will help me. Am I the jerk for calling out coworker on lying about her language skills? Last week, a new colleague, Kathy, 33 female, started working at my 25 female workplace. She instantly stood out in the team because she seemed like someone who was very loud and assertive. 2 of my colleagues, me and Kathy, were having a coffee in the break room. We were the only ones in there and we were sitting far apart when the subject of travel was brought up. My colleague said she wasn't booking trips anymore because it'll probably get canceled because of lockdown anyway. Kathy immediately cut in about how sad she is because she travels so often and she goes on these far, exotic trips to Europe as her hobby. When I think exotic, I think the Bahamas or something instead of Europe, but cool. Kathy then jokes about how all this no travel business is making her fear that she'll lose some of her foreign language skills. I asked what languages she spoke. She claimed to be fluent in 3 European languages, among which were French and Dutch. Kathy said that she was at a native speaker level and went on about how people in Europe were always surprised when they found out she wasn't from there. I was excited because I never get to speak Dutch over here. I was raised in Belgium, which has 3 national languages, French and Dutch, which are my mother tongues and the most commonly spoken there, and German. It's quite common to be pretty fluent in at least 2 out of the 3 languages in Belgium, because you're required to learn them at school, along with English, from a young age. I told Kathy, "Oh, look, dan heben we eats Gamenscheiben." Oh, fun, we have something in common then. She immediately pulled this sour face and asked me if that was supposed to be Dutch. I said yes. She laughed awkwardly and said she couldn't understand because I have a terrible accent and must not be that good at speaking it. Now, see, I don't have an accent. I speak Dutch more fluently than I speak English. I told Kathy that I grew up speaking Dutch and speak it to my family all the time. She got upset and asked what languages I speak and where I'm from. I told her I'm from Belgium, so I also speak French, and I added, "Which you just said you speak as well. Cool, we can speak French instead." I acknowledged that I was a bit of a jerk here because by that point I knew she probably lied about speaking French as well. She then shoved her chair back and angrily got up and said, "Whatever," and stomped off. It was pretty awkward. My other colleagues just kinda shrugged and said she shouldn't have lied. However, she later approached me and told me I embarrassed her by acting superior about my European heritage. I told her that there was no way for me to know she had lied about speaking those languages. She rolled her eyes and told me I was immature. A colleague told me that Kathy had called me a little jerk who enjoys bullying new colleagues behind my back later. I don't think I was a bully at all, but I don't want this thing to turn into a huge thing. Do I just apologize to keep the peace? Am I the jerk? Edit 1. I'm not sure about escalating this to HR, which a lot of people have told me I should do. I feel like this might make me look immature to the rest of my colleagues, of which I am the youngest, and it might not need to go that far. It depends on if Kathy is willing to put this behind her and be professional. If all else fails, I do have witnesses who would be honest about what happened, so I think I might be in the clear if she tries to twist the story. Edit 2. Some people have taken offense to me giving the Bahamas as an example of an exotic place and are trying to make this into an issue. I didn't know exotic was an offensive term in the US. Do I think of the Netherlands, Belgium, England, Norway, which were countries she was describing as being faraway exotic destinations, as my idea of an exotic trip? No, not because there's a lot of white people there, but because when I think of exotic, I think of a place with nice sunny weather, white sand beaches, and a blue ocean. Maybe it's because I'm from Belgium, but I don't really feel like being in my home country where it's dark and rainy all the time is quite that experience. Edit 3. Some people think she might not have understood me because she is fluent in Dutch, but learned it in the Netherlands, which has different accents. While it is true that the Netherlands and Flanders have different accents, I didn't speak a very specific dialect like West Flemish or something. I spoke the general Dutch you'd see in the news in Flanders. I didn't speak quickly to try and make it incomprehensible to set her up. I genuinely believed she spoke Dutch because that's what she was saying, so I talked to her in normal conversational Dutch. The same kind of Dutch I'd use in a work environment back in my home country. The same kind of Dutch I use with friends from the Netherlands, but with a soft G. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is Kathy? Please let us know. Definitely Kathy. Sounds like a total Karen. The revenge you all seek. Moons ago, I worked in a restaurant located smack dab in the heart of a sunny, popular destination city. Every year, our city would host the Granddaddy Comic Convention, where people dress as their favorite characters from comics to cult films. Literally, the streets would be filled with the most realistic costumes. Hulk, Spock, Goku, Chewbacca, Sailor Moon, Austin Powers, plus celebrity sightings. It was definitely the highlight of my year as a server. People were, for the majority, in a really great mood. The nicest hordes of humans you can imagine serving. However, come nightfall, the party people would still relentlessly come out, and our restaurant, like many in this area, would transition from restaurant to club by 10 p.m. My shift usually was the second to last night scheduled, so I would cover all of dinner and help the closer transition into cocktail mode. So it's around 11 p.m., and my shift is over, and I'm excited to just clock off and have some drinks with all these creatures when my manager asks if I would stay to do a bottle service just for one customer. He promised I wouldn't have to serve any tables, just take this bottle service, and it was a guaranteed $250 sale. Typically, people who do bottle service tip really well. I figured, why not? All I'd have to do is hoochie moves with the bottle delivery, pour up some drinks, and then check on them occasionally to make sure they have mixers and ice. Plus, we were allowed to drink on shift. Easy peasy. So the night goes on, and the dude ended up getting another bottle. Nice. Their group ended up staying until close, and when the bill finally came, which my manager actually comped the second bottle in half because he knew our DJ, the dude throws down a bunch of cash, and I'm thinking, cool, cash money, honey. Wrong. He literally left enough to cover the bill with $5 left over. So, as a server, I wanted to keep my optimism and think he will just leave the rest of the tip when I bring him his receipt. Wrong. It was over $500, and he left me $5. I was livid. I could have been off 4 hours ago, but now my sales were $500 higher, and I have to give the bar $50 of my money because they get 10% of our liquor sales. I was fuming at my manager, and he genuinely felt awful. But because he was friends with our DJ, he felt comfortable enough to approach him and tell him that $5 was really insulting as a tip. Remember, I've been busting my butt through hordes of sweaty costumes since 5 p.m. It's now 3 a.m. So the dude gives my manager a 20. Whatever. I take the loss and just learn my lesson. Anywho, fast forward to a month later. This jerk decides to come back on a night that I'm actually closing. He gets bottle service again, and my mood just took a nosedive because I know I'm gonna get done over again. The night ends, and this dude is pretty tossed. I'm trying to bus and clean while he and his friends finish their drinks since they were my only tab left. The dude comes up to the bar that I was cleaning off and asks me, "How much do I owe you?" I give him his bill, and now he starts asking me in a condescending and drunkenly way, "What tip would make you feel better?" I replied, "I really don't care, just pay the bill." He then began throwing wads of money on the counter. "Take what you want." Ugh, this is so degrading. I repeat that I just want him to pay the bill, and I don't care what else he leaves. So my general manager pops her head out and asks me if all my tabs were closed. I tell her I was just waiting on Captain Jerk Canoe to figure out how much money he wants to give me. But because we're all on time crunches for OT, she does the coolest thing. She hangs out next to us while this dude starts with the "How much do you want?" line. She butts in and asks, "Are you ready to close out?" He drunkenly responds, "Yeah, all my money is here. I told her to take whatever she wants." She grabs all the money on the counter and says, "Thank you so much for coming back in again. We really appreciate you." Goes to the back, cashes out his tab, and puts the rest in my book. This dude put roughly $500 on the counter. His tab was $150 because we comped his bottle again. Ugh, don't ask. I go to the back since I'm officially done with this jerk, and I can hear his girlfriend say, "What the heck did you just do?" He didn't argue. He knew he put his foot in his mouth when he realized how much money he put on the counter and literally said, "Take whatever you want." My manager then goes back out and says how much we appreciate him and that we are officially closed and has the bouncers usher him out. It was the sweetest karma I had ever seen play out. My manager asks if I had a good night, and I thank her for that cool move. The end. Want me to be extra specific on my time spent during the workday? I can do that. I work in sales. I spend time in my actual office and on the road making cold calls. The small company I work for uses a call logging software that plans my trips to customers. A typical logged call would look like this: called X customer, time spent in call notes. About a year ago, the owner of the company asked me to create a customer called office work to ping on the software to let him know I was in my office and not out seeing customers. In the call notes, I would write a short general description on what I did in my time in office. A month ago, the owner decided his fresh out of college 22-year-old son was fit to be the manager of all salespersons. His son has commenced to micromanage my daily call reports to the fullest extent. He has to write a report to his father what each salesperson does every day. I get texts or emails almost daily asking what exact times I did what in my office or on the road. This culminated to the owner's son demanding I log each individual task, such as driving to a customer, working on a spreadsheet, or even warming up my vehicle. The example he gave me: 7:30 a.m. to 7:49 a.m., checked and responded to email. 7:52 a.m. to 8 a.m., warmed up truck, etc. Each entry takes about a minute to create and log. He wanted to know what I was doing every minute of the entire workday. Fine, I can play ball. For the past week and a half, I've been scrutinizing every single second of the day to ludicrous extent. I timed 5 minutes and counted the number of breaths I took to get an average amount of breathing per minute, about 18 breaths per minute. Better log that. I began timing my bathroom breaks and logging it. My fastest bladder draining is 48 seconds, including washing hands. I timed how long it would take to fill up my water and logged it. 29 seconds from start to back at my desk. I timed how long to tie my boots and logged that. 4 seconds each boot. Sitting at a stoplight? Logged. He now knows I can knock on a customer door 10 times in 3 seconds. For about a week, I logged everything I did, every waking moment of the workday, including the bites of my salad for lunch. Heck, I even got the other salesperson to join in the malicious compliance. He was inundated, and hundreds of reports each day he had to comb through. Today, he sent an email to the Salesforce that we are no longer required to give specific times for tasks, but rather a general description would suffice, just like it was before he took over. Have you ever had someone try to micromanage you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
Can't be micromanaged when I've never had a job.
My grandfather made a Karen cry. Okay, so for a little bit of backstory, I've always been in severe pain after I eat for hours. I've had a history of acid reflux since I was young, but it had recently gotten worse. So I went to the doctor and found out I have GERD and some pretty bad ulcers in my esophagus from it. Another important detail is that I help my grandmother a lot because she's going through chemotherapy, so I'm very conscious about wearing a mask when I'm out. Sorry for all that, now onto the story and cast. We've got me, we've got grandfather who drove me around, we've got the pharmacist, and we've got Karen. After a long doctor's appointment that my grandfather was nice enough to drive me to and from, I was given a new prescription, but of course my insurance changed where I can pick up my medicine. My very delightful grandfather, who drove me to the doctor, offered to drive me to the pharmacy to pick up meds so I wouldn't need to leave the house again and drive to the pharmacy. I accepted because all I wanted to do was go home and sleep. We arrived at the pharmacy and I went right to the counter to tell them my name and any other information they need while my grandfather looked at compression socks for my grandmother, and they say romance is dead. Then cue Karen. She looked like the classic Karen. Yoga pants 3 sizes too small, some god-awful sequins shirt, ugly puffer trench coat, and to top off the whole look, no mask. After she enters the pharmacy, she decides to stand way closer than she should have been even before lockdown, and I politely told her, "Ma'am, you're not wearing a mask. Could you please back away from me? No, there are pieces of tape on the floor so you know where to stand." Her response was to very loudly say, "Okay, jerk," while getting even closer to me. When she said that, however, it got the attention of the person being helped at the counter in front of me and the pharmacist. The pharmacist told Karen, "You need to wear a mask or leave. No mask, no service." Karen,
"Oh, shut up. I'm a valuable customer."
Pharmacist, "I can give you a mask if you don't have one, but if you refuse to wear one, you'll have to leave." As she says this, the person in front of me leaves, and I walk up, and Karen shouts,
"I'm not going to wear a darn mask. Now stop harassing me."
Now this is where my grandfather, on the other side of the pharmacy, takes notice, but all he does is pop his head out from the end cap, and we exchanged a thumbs up. Pharmacist, "Ma'am, please just wear a mask." She then places one on the counter and then asks me for my information. Halfway through giving me my information, Karen comes very close to me, to the point that I can feel the wind when she decides once again to scream.
"Did you not hear me? I'm not going to wear a mask. And you,"
pointing her wrinkled, disfigured finger in my face, almost touching me,
"need to get the heck out of my way. I have things to do."
Now I normally stay out of arguments as much as I can, but like I said before, I just wanted to go home and sleep, so not my best moment, but I slightly raised my voice above talking and said, "Ma'am, please either back away from me or put on a mask." And this is when my grandfather walks over to see what's happening. My grandfather is an ex-Navy Master Chief and is the definition of short Irish temper, and also happens to be very protective of me because I'm the firstborn female grandchild. In my family, it's important if you are the oldest and a female, because you will have to take care of the elderly, sick, and the younger children of the family, and the only grandchild who lives nearby, but isn't still in elementary school. Karen then yells back, while also cornering me between the pharmacy counter and a wall, and goes,
"I don't have to listen to a thing you say, you jerk."
Cue Grandpa. Listen here, you sorry excuse for a human being. You clearly have no respect for other people, so I will have absolutely none for you too. You have such a dense skull that you can't even acknowledge that many people have passed after getting sick because of stupid people like you. And unless you are blind and deaf, you heard the lady and my granddaughter tell you to wear a mask, and I know you saw the sign to wear a mask. So either put it on or leave. Both the pharmacist and I are in shock of what just happened, and then all of a sudden, Karen burst into tears, hysterically sobbing, reluctantly grabs the mask, and slowly walks out of the pharmacy, still sobbing. My grandfather, in the sweetest old man voice and smiling with his eyes, asks, "You get your meds yet, doll?" I shake my head no, and then proceed to give my information to the pharmacist. I get my meds and we check out with them. Some compression socks and flowers for my grandmother. After we get back in my grandpa's truck, I thank him and we drive back to my grandparents' place so I can take care of my grandmother and nap. Local artist expects librarians to sell her art. Here in my library, we often invite local artists to display their art on our walls above our magazine section. Last weekend, I just happened to be working when the latest artist came to hang her work. She was very upset that we would not remove our tax forms and information from the lower part of a wall, and thus left that wall blank because it would ruin the look of her paintings. Today, we found out that she actually went and called the local paper to say she was having a meet and greet at our library next Saturday. She didn't ask or mention it to anyone at the library. The paper published this little news item without contacting the library. Because of lockdown, we can't hold any gatherings or meetings in our library. We are even doing our programs virtually. My branch manager called her to let her know that she can't have a meet and greet here at the library because, well, we're a library. Plus, we have restrictions on gatherings due to lockdown. I don't know if anyone showed up to her meet and greet last Saturday, but I did ask my branch manager to tell me the whole story. After we heard that she had posted in the local newspaper that there will be a meet and greet at our library, a big no-no in these times, it fell to my branch manager to call her and let her know she can't do this. When my branch manager contacted her and told her that she can't have her party, the artist went ballistic. This is where it got even more bizarre. My branch manager couldn't get a word in edgewise as the artist continued to berate her on the loss of her party. In essence, the artist was under the impression that the library staff would promote and sell her art. No, we are librarians. She kept asking my manager, "Well, what are you going to do for me?" My manager let her know we are a non-profit, and the only thing we can do is have it posted in our newsletter that her art is on display at our branch. I don't know where she got the idea we would sell her art for her. The entitlement is strong in this one. In case someone wants to know, yes, her art is pretty good. Am I the jerk for telling my roommate that she can no longer dog sit for her mom in my home? Back when lockdown hit, I was moved to part-time and needed a roommate to help with bills. I had the rent covered, but electric and heat were out. I don't know anyone in the area. I'm in college in a different state. So I posted an ad and had a male classmate with me when people came in to view the apartment. A girl who was 1 year ahead of me, but under the same major, seemed like a good fit. Very quiet, keeps to herself, and has an exemplary rental reference. I moved her in shortly after. My rent is $1,500 for a 2-bedroom flat. My electric and heat bill is $400 combined. I told her to just cover the $400 that I couldn't afford and obviously pay for her own food. She didn't want to get on the lease because she didn't want it to be permanent. Whatever, I allowed it. She has been here for 6 months. Now, 3 weeks ago, my roommate's mother asked her if she could dog sit her new puppy because apparently she didn't have time to take care of the animal herself. My roommate didn't ask me, just said yes. I will admit that originally I didn't mind this at all. Having a little ball of fluff running around was entertaining. However, we started running into issues. This dog is not housebroken and refuses to go outdoors to use the bathroom. My roommate will stay outside with the puppy for hours, and the dog will refuse to do its business until it is inside, where he proceeds to take care of business all over my kitchen and living room. Thank God for no carpets, I guess. Well, her mom started bringing over puppy pads and said that she uses them for the dog 100% of the time, which would explain why the dog refuses to do it outdoors. So we've been using these puppy pads, and as expected, the dog uses them. However, the puppy pads aren't really good. I didn't realize it whenever the dog uses the pad. It seeps through the bottom and it immediately goes onto the floor. I hadn't been cleaning up the pad, obviously. My roommate was, and she failed to tell me that the amount of pee getting trapped under the pad was causing watermarks on the dark hardwood floor. Of course, the pads are in my roommate's room, so I never noticed until this morning when the puppy took off with my charger in his mouth and I had to go retrieve it. That's when I noticed a very noticeable white stained square on the floor, as well as the closet door chewed at the bottom. I texted my roommate, who left to go to the store, and told her she wasn't allowed to have the dog here anymore because I'm now going to lose my security deposit. She's arguing that it's her place too, and she can have a dog there if she wants because it doesn't state otherwise on the lease that she refused to get on. I told her she could move out if she doesn't follow my rules, as I'm upset to lose that deposit, which would help me secure another place when I leave next year. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her roommate? Please let us know.
Definitely the roommate. I'd kick her out ASAP.
How a meatball sub ended in divorce. While at my Subway store, I'm the manager. Our franchise general manager comes in to do a review of my employees, and I received a call from another nearby store of ours in need of some product. So I head out to transfer the product to another store, so the first part of this is all secondhand from our general manager. My big burly closer has a middle-aged Karen, haircut and all, come in. She's ordered food for herself and her husband in the car. My general manager can see them both from his seat in the lobby. He's watching my closer make the sandwich via our cameras while paying attention to his customer service, correct questions, politeness, etc. She orders a club for herself and a meatball sandwich for her husband. She proceeds to ask for a little extra sauce and then piles it full of toppings he had asked for. Gets rather demanding as my closer is adding the toppings per Subway regulation, even for extra, making her ask multiple times. Of course, my general manager is in the store, and I'm not there to take the heat if he doesn't. Something I did for my employees, especially him, since I relied on him to keep my already long work weeks below 80 hours when people called out. Man's a saint of patience. She's rude, but nothing abnormal for fast food. She takes her food. Husband and Karen proceed to go home to eat. I return from the other store and sit with our general manager in the dining area. We go over what went down while I was gone, how my closer did. Fantastic, of course. And he catches me up on the owner's focus for the store and drama from other stores. He used to be my manager for a year before we both got promoted. Then in comes Karen's husband, the poor divorcee. He comes in livid, swinging our front door hard enough I thought it was going to slam against the store next door's windows. He starts, "Do you know what you've done?" pointing to my closer, who is twice his size by the way, and usually a gentle giant. Closer, is there something I can help you with? He's obviously confused, considering he could not have seen the husband sitting in the car. Husband,
"Yeah, you can pay my alimony and buy me a new house. She's going to take me for everything, and it's all your fault. I'm going to sue you, the store, the owner, Subway."
General manager and I stand up to handle it. My general manager rests his hand on my shoulder and tells me he has this. General manager, sir, what exactly has happened?
"Your employee put too much sauce on my sandwich. It fell out onto my pants, and my wife got angry. The argument ended with us getting a divorce."
You are going to pay for it. General manager, oh, sure, I'm sorry to hear about that. I'd be happy to give you a free sandwich.
"Free sandwich? What?"
General manager, but holding up a hand to have husband let him finish. If meatball sauce on your pants is causing a divorce, I hate to tell you that your marriage had problems long before this. Karen's husband then spills an incoherent set of sounds before storming out and peeling out of our parking lot. In the end, Karen's husband sent in a complaint to corporate. Our corporate contact came in the next month for his inspection and asked me about it. I brought up the cameras and audio of the evening. He chuckled and smiled. Corporate, please email this to me too, will you? Me, sure. May I ask why? Corporate, 1, proves we have no fault in this divorce in case of suit. 2, and most importantly, it's hilarious, and my coworkers have to see this. So that's how a meatball sub ended a marriage. Angry random Karen doesn't like where I parked. Okay, so needed context. The store I work at has a parking lot on either side of the building, front and back. The back lot is where the employee parking is and where we also park our work vans. The front lot very rarely fills up, but last week there was some construction done to the building, so there were work trucks filling up the front lot. Also, the back door to our store had been replaced, but the auto-close arm wasn't, so you have to hold the door and shut it slowly, or else it slams shut and it's super loud. For the purpose of this story, I am Jason, the lady I had the entitlement with is Karen, and my boss is Scott. Sundays are my late start days, where I come in after the store has already opened to run my van route. I pulled into the back lot in my POV, wearing my uniform hoodie and polo shirt. Both have the store logo on them. I also usually wear a black unmarked hat as well. So I park, and as I'm getting out of my car, the lady in the car next to me stops pulling out of her spot and rolls down her window. The following conversation ensues. Karen: "Excuse me, you can't park there." Me: "I sure can." Karen: "You sure can't. An employee just yelled at me for parking back here. You have to go around front." Me: "No, it's okay. I work here." "Then why aren't you in uniform?" Me points to my shirt logo. "I am in uniform." "Where's your badge?" "I don't have one." "Well, the other guy was wearing one." Me: "My manager wears a tag that says manager because we all wear the same polo shirt." "How am I supposed to know that?" I'm speechless. Karen: "Whatever. Your customer service sucks anyway. When I get in there, I'm telling your manager." Me: "Great. He's the one with the manager badge." At this point, I'd gotten my bag out of my back seat and had started walking towards the store. Karen: "Hey, jerk. I'm still talking to you." I'm about to turn around and say something when I guess Scott heard the commotion and decided to try and get me out of a tough spot in his own way. He throws the back door open and yells, "Jason, why the heck are you late?" Me: "This woman told me I can't park here." Karen: "He doesn't even work here." Scott: "Ma'am, I asked you to pull around front to the customer parking." "You can't treat your employees that way." Scott: "I thought you said he doesn't work here." By now, I've made it into the store and Scott waves me in, making full eye contact with Karen. He moves his hand and lets the door slam shut over top of what she was yelling at him. Unfortunately, I wasn't there long enough to see if she actually came in and tried to deal with him or not. Would you move to a different parking spot if Karen told you to, or not? Please let us know.
You will if you know what's good for you.
Nice old lady gets help. Mean old lady gets arrested. I'll start with some background information. I'm about 6 feet tall. I have long hair for a guy, and I'm about 16 years old, and I'm apparently an old person magnet in stores. I'll be referring to the Karen as mean old lady. Okay, so today was a strange day. I was just studying for my test for tomorrow when I realized that I ran out of snacks. It was about 10 a.m. at the time, so I figured I'd just go to the big chain store a few blocks away from my house. Looking back, I should have known most old people shop at those hours in my hometown, but I was just hungry for snacks. I am not really scary, but because of my purple jacket, black pants, and man bun, and earphones in blasting rap music, I didn't really look like an employee, or so I thought. I was just browsing the store to find some snacks and maybe something for dinner that day. As I ducked to search between the salted nuts for a decent-looking bag, I felt a hard tap on my shoulder. I turned my music off and turned around, only to see a nice old lady asking me if I could help her. I always get asked to help by old ladies. I don't know why, but they always seem to like me. So I say sure, what can I help with? She says that she wants a microwave, but she can't lift it into her cart. I tell her that I will come with her so I can help. I already had everything I needed now, so I just tag along with the nice old lady and help her with putting it in her cart and onto the belt. I kept talking to the nice old lady, and she asked me why I was so nice to her, so I say that I just try to be nice to help elderly people when I can. She tried to pay for my snacks too, but I rejected her offer because I had my card ready already. When I put her microwave in her trunk, she slid a 10-euro bill into my hand and said it was good to see that some people still behave well. After the nice old lady drives off, I realized that I forgot to buy potatoes for dinner, so I ran home, dropped everything off, and went back in. This time was less wholesome. I entered the store and went immediately to the potatoes. I tried looking for the best bag because the chain was known for their potatoes that would have more black spots than any other store, so I find a nice bag of good-looking big potatoes. As I'm lifting the big bag onto my cart, I hear a groan and tapping of a shoe on the tiled floor. So thinking that I was standing in the way, I try to move aside, but the mean old lady isn't having it. She starts to groan even louder. Knowing that I messed up, I turn around and guess what I see? A not so nice looking old lady. She was probably around 60, but was wearing clothes like a 20-year-old would wear. I'm talking a crop top and light blue jeans 3 sizes too small with sandals on. And of course, she had the haircut, but more gray than blonde. I try not to judge anyone, but she was on another level. She loudly said,
Finally, I've been trying to get your attention for at least 5 minutes now.
I say sorry, I wasn't paying attention. She then started screaming at me about how she demands me, not asking, but demanding, that I help her put her stuff in her car after she pays for it. I tell her that I'm not going to do it because she screamed at me. She then says,
You have no choice. You have to. It's your job. I saw you outside helping the other lady 15 minutes ago.
I tell her, first of all, I am not an employee here. And second of all, if I was, I'd decline to help you due to your behavior against me just now. Then I try to walk away, but she now is in Alpha Karen mode, so she tries to push me aside. She was kind of on the bigger side, so her push with all force was kind of harder than I expected. I ended up tripping over a tile that sticks out partially and faceplant into the aisle next to me. The Karen, knowing what she did, screamed,
Ah, no, don't touch me.
I was completely stunned by her actions, so didn't know what to say. So an employee arrives and she starts crying and telling him her lies while they walk to the closest bench so she can sit to rest after being jumped. I tried to get back up myself, but due to my bad landing, I managed to hurt my back and couldn't balance myself properly, so I just decided to lay down and wait until someone arrives. Luckily, an old man saw everything and came up to me to help me up. I said I can wait and that I didn't want him to hurt his back helping me up, but the old guy wasn't taking no for an answer. He just picked me up gently and gave me his cane to lean on and giggled. My wife makes me use it just in case, but I don't need it now. As soon as I thank him, the manager arrives with a not so happy look, until he sees me barely being able to stand and the old man. He asks me what happened, and I tell him my story, and the old guy backs me up. He then said to me that the police are already on their way and that we can stay in his office until they get there. As soon as we hear sirens, I feel scared. I'm a boy with a man bun and am being accused of assaulting an old lady, so in my head, my life is over. I'm trying not to puke out the stress while we wait. After mean old lady did her story and said I should be fired to the police because yeah, the police can hire me from a store I don't work at. They come to me and start asking me questions. The old guy is still with us and getting bored. He just says, Jim, apparently the manager's name, just show them the camera footage instead of wasting this kid's time. The manager says okay here and turns his screen to show us the entire thing on security footage. I was so relieved to know that I had proof now. After 10 minutes, he asks if I would like to press charges. I said I'll contact him with my parents later. He gives me his details and we walk out. Me too, but slowly. The officer then cuffs the mean old lady and she keeps screaming all the way to the car. The old man said he was the manager's old supervisor and was also shopping for dinner that day when he noticed Karen bullying customers. We laughed a little bit and I ended up buying his groceries as a thank you for helping me, and I'm now in the hospital waiting for the results, but they think my back will be fine. Was it worth it? Probably not. Was it on purpose? Probably not. Did she deserve it? Definitely. I may be the jerk for not helping an elderly lady, but she was well capable of it if she can push me to the floor. Would you help a Karen in the store if she was mean to you or not? Please let us know.
You better, or you might end up like our boy here.
Am I the jerk for asking to be paid after babysitting my niece for over a year? I'm 20, female, and my niece is a year and a half old, and I've been my sister's, 27, female, only babysitter since she was born. My mom occasionally babysits, but only about once a month as she lives 45 minutes away from my sister, and I only live 15 minutes away. Well, my sister has been asking me to babysit a lot recently. For example, in the past week, I've babysat 5 days, and it's not just for an hour. Yesterday, I was there from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I haven't been home for more than a few hours, not sleeping, in days. She made me get somebody to cover my shift at work today so I could babysit, and does this often. She doesn't allow me to eat any food at her house, but I'm also not allowed to take my niece in the car. I've never been pulled over or in any accidents that I was driving, so my only option is to order delivery, which can get expensive. She's told me in the past she's going to start paying me, but the only time she's ever paid me was over New Year's Eve, where she paid $40 for babysitting overnight. My sister just moved over 30 minutes away from me. I told her if she wants me to continue babysitting, I'm going to need to be compensated for the time and money I'm spending in gas and food. She got really upset and told me that I shouldn't want to be paid for spending time with my niece. Am I the jerk? Update. I texted my sister and said, "Look, I love being able to see my niece as much as I do, but I need to start getting paid for babysitting. I would have made $180 at work this weekend, but I lost $130 since you told my boyfriend to tell me to split the $100 with him for gas money. I'm your only babysitter other than mom, but mom barely babysits, and I have been a few days a week. I want $10 an hour. That's lower than you'll find from anyone else in the town where you live." And she responded with, "Kay, I'll find someone else." She then went on to tell me that I need to get my crap from her house by next weekend or it's getting thrown away, and that I shouldn't have came at her instead of trying to have a discussion. She pulled the "you're her aunt" card and said, "You didn't ask to be paid, you demanded." At this point, I kinda lost my crap and told her everything I had wanted to say for years, and she said, "We're done. Delete my number." Done. Thank you everyone for all your advice. While it sucks she reacted this way, I'm extremely proud of myself for finally sticking up for myself after 20 years. Edit. Thank you for the awards. I feel like I should add this. My sister is a stay-at-home mom. Her husband works full-time and is as awful as she is. He fully supports not paying me and doesn't think I should want to be paid for spending time with my niece. They're both massive jerks. Also, thank you for all the kind words. It means a lot. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. Definitely her sister. Karens will continue to be Karens until someone puts them in their place. The bane of blacksmiths. So, little bit of background. When I was around 14, I got into forging knives with the most basic equipment, literally just charcoal and fire bricks for the forge, and a hammer and tongs for my actual equipment. And I've been doing this for roughly 6 years, like this once or twice a week. When lockdown started, I had a whole lot more time on my hands as my work was closed for 4 months, but reopened with limited hours. So now I have more time, but still have an income, so I decided I'd put a little money into my forge equipment. This happened last week. Out of courtesy to my neighbors, I told all my neighbors that I'd be making more noise as I was picking up the frequency that I used my forge as I got new equipment. All of who were fine with it, one of them being excited as he wanted me to make him a knife, all except one, my next door neighbor, who I'll call Karen. Now, Karen used to be friendly towards my family until about 4 years ago due to her not respecting our political views, so we stopped inviting her over and tended to avoid her since she'd try to make arguments at every turn. At most, I'll say good morning and ask, "How are you?" Anyways, I'm kind of off track. The issue she had with it was, "I don't want you polluting my yard with the smoke it's gonna make." And despite me explaining it's a propane forge, it doesn't produce much of any smoke, she still demanded that I don't do it. I ignored that, of course, as she cannot tell me what I can and can't do on my property, and it was really just a formality to let my neighbors know. So I set up my forge in my backyard, put down gravel so there wasn't any fire hazard, lined it with bricks, and was putting the forge together and fixing it to the large flat stone I decided to set it on. She comes over as I'm doing this and walks into my backyard without me noticing and opens up with, "I said you can't do that." I jump as I had no clue she's there, and that's when the fun starts. She begins yelling about how I said I wouldn't put anything back there. I didn't. How she'd get the HOA involved, of which our neighborhood doesn't have one. And when I informed them of that, she threatened to call the police, which was ridiculous. I responded with, "Get off my land before I call the cops on you." And she left, and I kept setting up my forge. Pass a week, I treat the forge with no issues, and as of 2 days ago, I was working on my first knife out of it when a guy walks up to my fence and asks if I was the homeowner. I respond, yes, look up for my forge, and who's about 50 feet away on the sidewalk with her arms crossed and a smug look on her face? Karen. So I ask what can I do for him, and he says, "I'm with the county. I'm a building inspector, and I got a report from your neighbors that you are building a permanent structure without a permit." I say, "No, last thing I built was this," and gestured at my forge. He looks around and says, "Are you planning on building anything or expanding any existing structures?" I respond, "Nope," and he simply writes it down and he asks what it is, and me and him chat about the forge for about 15 minutes before Karen, irritated because I'm not getting in trouble, storms over and in her shrill, annoying voice demands, "What are you doing? He broke county ordinance, so make him get rid of it." And the following conversation was essentially just, "No, I didn't. Yeah, nothing's wrong here," and ended with her walking off and then driving off in her SUV. The inspector was cool and we chatted for a bit longer. Cut to yesterday. I walk out to start the forge, and while I'm getting ready to start the propane, I notice something pretty important. The line feeding into my forge is cut, and the bracket and copper tube on the tank is bent inwards, with one of the bricks from the border of the gravel laying about 6 feet away in the grass. I'm confused for a minute before realizing what happened here. I take out my phone to check my backyard motion camera to see if there's any movement. Sure enough, there was movement through the night. The normal wildlife, a fox, 2 raccoons running outside the fence, a house cat, and Karen walking into my backyard with what looked like garden shears. And about 5 minutes later, her jogging out of my yard. So after downloading the footage to my phone and computer, taking pictures of the damage, and ordering new parts for my forge, I called the non-emergency police number and talked with the police, shared the footage with them, and they wrote down some info and walked over to her house and tried to get an explanation. She just yelled at them until they had heard enough and placed her under arrest, which didn't exactly calm her down as she was wailing and screeching like a banshee the whole way to the car, yelling some pretty harsh things at me, the officers, and another neighbor as he walked out and asked me what was happening. As of right now, she's facing 1 charge of breaking and entering, 1 charge of vandalism, 1 charge of disorderly conduct, and 1 charge of resisting arrest, as she kicked one of the officers while they put her in the car. I have an appointment with a small claims lawyer tomorrow, and me and my dad have been laughing our butts off at how crazy she was. And to Karen, if you see this, as I know you're on Reddit, I'll see you in court. Hope your night in the county jail was pleasant. Thank you all for reading, and let me know if there's any way I can improve the structure of the story, as I don't think I'm too good at structuring these stories. 2/17/21, 10:55 p.m. Her family has called me 3 times today trying to get me to drop charges, each person straying from slightly entitled reasonings to inane babbling. I've informed each one that I was recording at the beginning of each call. Her son called and begged me to drop charges. When I told him, as any reasonable person would, no, as it could have hurt me, I distinctly remember he called me an insensitive jerkhead and proceeded to call me quite a few names. And when I reminded him I was recording the call, he went down the "I didn't give you consent to record me" path. He hung up as soon as I pointed out I had a recording of this. Do you have any hobbies of creating things like OP does? If so, what do you create? Please let us know. Chaos wherever I go. Am I the jerk for how I reacted when my fiance dropped our son off at my workplace? I, male 27, am a nurse. My fiance and I have a 1-year-old baby boy. Fiance doesn't work. She decided to leave her previous job and stay at home. We've agreed that since I'm the one working, she's the one handling home chores. Our son's care is shared, meaning there are times when I handle his feeding, bathing, cleaning, etc. However, I made it clear that when it's time for work, she should be taking responsibility. So far, everything has been going according to what we agreed upon, but recently she's been complaining about my shift hours changing, which is something I can't control, obviously, because currently the unit lacks in nurses, and it's impossible for me to do day-to-day planning because sometimes I'd work 12 hours, sometimes 15. So it's quite unpredictable, but I do my best to spend time at home and give my fiance time for herself. Her cousin's wedding was 2 days ago. That morning, my fiance wanted me to skip work and stay home with our son so she could go to the salon with her sisters. I told her I can't just skip work for the day. I already had a long day shift that started at 7:45 a.m. till 6 p.m. I told her she could either call my mom or just wait for me to come home. She threw a fit and is saying her cousin's wedding was important and I was being unsupportive. I left home after that and started my shift at the hospital. At around 1 p.m., when I was in the middle of work, it usually gets busier in the afternoon, I got a few missed calls from my fiance. Then she sent a text telling me she was at the hospital's parking lot with our son. I went to meet her there. She wanted me to take our son and watch him till she gets back from the salon at 4. I lost it. I told her I can't watch our son when I'm in the middle of my shift, and she kept saying I should just let him stay with me and that it was okay. I absolutely lashed out at her. I called her unreasonable and selfish. She could have let someone watch him, but she said her family was busy. We got into an argument and she left him with me. I had to drive to mom's house and let her have him till I finished my shift. I got home and I was extremely upset. My fiance and her mom said I overreacted and that I was supposed to help since he's my son too. Mother-in-law said I was in the wrong for caring more about work than my own son, but I already told my fiance I was busy. She wanted me to apologize for yelling and causing a scene, but I refused after this. I want to mention that she's normally fine with my work schedule until recently, and whenever there's an event, we'd both make arrangements and I'd stay with our son while she's gone. This time, I told her I was busy and that I won't be allowing her to distract me from work, but she was being stubborn, thinking I'm prioritizing work and being unsupportive. Those might be her mother's words, but my fiance takes responsibility here. The misunderstanding, as my fiance calls it, could have ended with a discussion, but her mother is determined to paint me as the bad parent who isn't pulling weight and taking part in responsibility in caring for our son. I'm tired of her and how she keeps judging me while ignoring her daughter's behavior. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is his fiance? Please let us know.
The good thing is that they're not married yet. OP still has a chance to not ruin his life.
The entitled mom that I broke with a song and dance. It has been a while since I've been mistaken for working at another market. For a while, it seemed every other month I'd be in a store, shopping comfortably, and somebody would come out of the woodwork and demand help, recognizing me from Failmart. But with lockdown and the masks, I've been happily incognito wherever I've gone in search of better prices and selection from the cult of Sam. At Failmart, I moved to another position from the pharmacy and now work the door, handing out masks and wiping down carts. It's a terrible job, but I'm making more money doing this than any other job, so figure that one out. I've also changed my look. I'm no longer a rock and roll yeti with long hair and band t-shirts, but dress more like a respectable member of society. I have discovered I'm quite the clothes horse. A fancy wool overcoat, a green vintage army jacket, a leather biker jacket, whatever I feel like tossing on that day. Hats, different shoes, various different pants. The point I'm making is I do not look like my Failmart alter ego when I'm out and about. I wear a black ball cap, a black faux military coat, and a name tag. I wear this day in and day out, but never in my civilian life. With the addition of the mask, it's difficult for the customers to recognize me. However, big snowstorm heading into my area, forecasting a foot of snow and sub-zero temperatures. I decide to forego shopping at my home store and head off to another superstore in the area in search of propane, ice melt, batteries, the usual prepper stuff I try to lay in when it's possible I'm going to be snowed in for a few days. Got my cart, listening to the store music playing the same tired 70s and 80s inoffensive fluff they always do. And it happens. I pause to grab a bottle of hot sauce and the much feared call of the entitled customer.
Hey, you!
Nope, not me. Can't be calling for me. I'm in a wool coat and a stylish Stetson. I'm not working. Oh crap. She actually whistled at me. I turned with dread, and yep, there she is. One of my Failmart customers, and one of the more infamous ones to boot. Let me describe this woman. She's basically spherical, a messed up angry face, beady eyes, and has a habit of wearing stained sweats no matter what the weather. She comes into Failmart and demands an electric cart and will get extremely huffy if none are available. I have run my butt ragged trying to meet her demands and never get a thank you. Her daughter once stole someone's cart from her from the bathroom area, but that's a story for another thread. So she's straining the store's electric cart, leaning over the handlebars and glaring at me. For once, her devil spawn are not with her.
Took you long enough? Get me a 40-pound bag of rock salt. Now, I want to get home before the snow.
Now, since I have a lot of time to think at Failmart, I sometimes amuse myself by making up little songs. Anything to make myself giggle and keep my mind off of my soul-sucking job. I glare at this woman, take a deep breath, and off to the races we go. To the tune of Oogie Boogie song from Nightmare Before Christmas. You're joking, I can't believe my ears. You're joking, you think that I work here? Look at me, dear lady, tell me what you see. I've got no darn name tag, so please just let it be. I start doing a soft shoe dance in my boots, slowly turning about, arms akimbo, showing off my non-Failmart attire. She's now staring at me like I've suddenly grown an extra head and it's making googly faces at her. I don't know why you're thinking that, I help all that I can. But for now, between you and me, I'm not the Failmart man. I grab my cart, spin it around like it's Ginger Rogers, and skip off down the aisle singing. You're joking! You're joking! I glanced to look over my shoulder right before I took the turn, and she was still sitting there, mouth agape. I couldn't stop grinning the rest of my trip. Entitled parents make my employee cry, get their free meal voucher revoked. Before we begin, a little bit of backstory. I am a manager for a chain sushi restaurant somewhere in the western United States. This restaurant chain offers something very special to a select few customers who either show that they deserve it, aka spend so much on sushi over time, or make a good enough impression on the staff that they recommend you get one. Doesn't happen nearly as often as you'd think. A set of platinum chopsticks that entitles you to as much free sushi as you can stuff your gut with. The cast. We've got entitled mom. We've got entitled kid. We've got the father, whose sanity I question for staying with this lady. And we've got the employee. The day started off like any other day. Going in at 10:30, calling an all-hands meeting, getting everyone pepped up and ready for the day's opening, prepping counter space and cleaning utensils. You know, typical restaurant stuff. We're about 10 minutes from opening when one of my newer employees walks in. She used her front door key and just came right on in. Unfortunately, entitled kid, entitled mom, and dad all followed in soon after her. At this restaurant, it's custom to seat yourself and a member of waitstaff to come take orders. And when I say custom, I mean there are signs literally every 5 feet on each bench and table side saying to be seated and wait. Now, from this point in the story, I'm piecing everything together from employee's side of the story and what I saw on security tapes after handling the issue in person. The trio walks in. Instead of being seated, walked directly up to the cashier's desk, which there's nobody currently at because we're still 5 minutes from officially opening. Entitled mom. Can we get some dang service? Employee then snaps to attention and hops directly over to the desk. Entitled mom. I want my free sushi, and I want it now. She then slams the platinum chopsticks on the counter and starts spouting off everything on the menu she wanted. Employee verifies that these are her chopsticks with some difficulty. Each pair is specifically registered to one person with a serial number stamped on the side. Employee. Will it just be you ordering today? These chopsticks only entitle the person they're registered with to free food. Entitled mom. No, these chopsticks mean I get as much as I want, and I want enough for me and my family. Employee. I'm very sorry, ma'am, but the contract that you signed to get those chopsticks clearly stated that you were only allowed one serving of your choosing at a time. Plus the, listen here, you snot-nosed brat. I don't care what you say. You're going to give me my free food, or I'll go to your manager and have you tossed out. Serve me now. It's at this point I'm brought into the picture. Employee comes stumbling into my office, tears streaming down her face, and 3 other employees right behind her to quickly relay the story. I'll spare you the rest of the details, as there was some not-so-clean language spoken between me and entitled mom. But here are some of the highlights. Entitled kid decided it would be a good idea to run around every table and knock over all of the soy sauce bottles, the ones that don't have a lid. Then run over to the drink machine behind the employee's only counter and completely soak himself. Entitled mom started shrieking at the top of her lungs that she's going to get what she wants, and we're going to pay for her son's dry cleaning before throwing the peppermint bowl beside the register across the room. Meanwhile, Dad just stands there like this is all normal and smiles. Before everything was said and done, she managed to not only get her platinum chopsticks revoked, but she was also gifted a lovely pair of matching bracelets by a local police officer. Employee was sent home for the rest of the day with full pay while I took over her spot on that shift. Luckily, the rest of the day went smoothly. Edit. Much apologies for not sharing the rest of the details. Unfortunately, I have to cover my butt in case somebody from corporate sees this. I very much like my job title, and I'd very much like to keep it. Now I really want some Chinese food. Do you guys like Chinese food? And if so, what are your favorite items? Please let us know. Ooh, Chinese food? Hurry up and finish these stories so we can go to Panda Express. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.